Good evening, everybody. This is the August 12th public hearing of the City of Evanston's Land Use Commission. The zoning ordinance directs this body to hear applications for map and text amendments, special uses, major variations, plan developments, appeals of the zoning administrator's decisions, as well as to make recommendations regarding the city's long-term planning goals and objectives. Depending on the type of matter, this commission will either be the determining body or make a recommendation for City Council. Mr. Bebo, please call the roll.
Commissioner Arevalo, Commissioner Berlin, Commissioner Harris-Free,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Vice Chair Linbaugh,
Here.
Commissioner Mabadi,
Here.
Commissioner Mangum,
Here.
Commissioner Miranchev, and Chair Pucktell.
Here. With 6 commissioners present, we have quorum, and we can proceed. Also present tonight from city staff are Development Services Supervisor Jeremiah Bebo, Senior Planner Sam Hubbard, and Assistant City Attorney Brian George. This is a formal hearing, and there are rules that govern these proceedings. Anyone who wishes to address the commission on any matter on the agenda tonight will have an opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. For cases, our procedure is to hear from staff on the documents on file, then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. Any person with legal interest within the defined notification requirements of the subject property may then present evidence, submit questions for the applicant or appellant, or seek a continuance of the hearing. Please be sure to sign in on the public comment sheet. I have received this sheet already. If anybody didn't have an opportunity to do so that they wanted to, please just see city staff over here. If there are many people signed up to speak, commission rules allow the chair to limit the amount of time for each person's testimony. Considering that we have a moderate, so it doesn't, for people that are looking to speak in addition to those that were granted continuances from last time, we'll do 3 minutes. And then, Jeremiah, has there been a time set for each person that has been granted a continuance to speak?
Yes, they'll be granted 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. Okay, all testimony will be taken under oath. When testifying, please state your name and address for the record. Thank you. All testimony from presenters and members of the public, including specific questions for the applicant or appellant, shall be directed to the commission. Although we do not follow strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony to the proposal as it relates to the standards within the zoning ordinance and staff memorandum. These meetings are audio and video recorded, so it is critical that only one person speaks at a time and that the speaker is at a microphone so that all testimony provided is properly recorded. We expect a high level of decorum to be maintained during these meetings, which includes preserving the right of every person speaking tonight to do so without interruption. Accordingly, reactions from the room, such as cheering or booing during or after testimony, are not allowed. Those unable to maintain decorum will be asked to leave. When all testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or closing statement. Then the commission will close the record and begin deliberations to consider the standards. The commission will make formal findings of fact based on the testimony and evidence presented, guided by the standards, the commission's knowledge of the community, and the recommendations of staff. All proceedings are subject to a broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting or to a date certain. We have 4 items on the agenda this evening, and I want to confirm that all of the applicants for those cases are present. So the folks from the Green Bay Road Sports Center, thank you very much. Is the applicant from 1916 Grant Street present? Thank you. And the applicant from 2737 Highland Avenue. Thank you. I will now conduct oath statements for both in-person and virtual attendees. If you plan to provide testimony in any of the cases scheduled for tonight, please raise your right hand and say yes if you agree with this statement. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you will provide in connection with this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you. The first item of business is to review and review and approval of minutes from prior meetings. And I see that there are 2 on the agenda, the minutes of July 8th and July 22nd. Are there any comments from commissioners on those minutes? Let's start with the July 8th. Are there any comments on the July 8th minutes?
No.
Hearing none. Let's just have a roll call.
No. I move that the minutes from July 8th be approved.
I second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All against? Abstain?
Abstain.
I'll abstain as well. And that passes. Okay, now for the July 22nd minutes.
I move approval of the July 22nd, 2026 minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those against?
And I
Abstain.
I abstain.
I have a yes vote as well, so that passes. Okay, the next item of business under old business, there are technically two items on here, but we'll hear them together. We heard this case at one of our prior meetings, and it was continued due to numerous continuance requests that we granted. The way it'll work tonight is that since public testimony is already closed for that case, what we have still on the docket for tonight is the presenter will be asked to come on up and tell us about their project. I understand there are some modifications that are being proposed, so we'd like to hear about those in detail. So you'll have an opportunity to present that first, and then we will hear from the continuance requesters, of which I believe there are about 5, and I'll go through my list for that. Then the applicant will have an opportunity to have a closing statement or make any kind of rebuttal to what you've heard up until that point, and then we will close the record. Okay. With that, please come on up and tell us about the proposal.
Great. Good evening. For the record, Katie Jenke-Dale from the law firm of DLA Piper, and along with my colleague Hannah Warren, we represent the applicant, which is the Ishbia Family Foundation. The foundation is represented again tonight by Eric Lynn. We also have our project architect, Brett Taylor, with us, and our traffic and circulation consultants, Louie Abuna and John Bieberitz. I'll be very brief to go over the changes to the plans. I know they were outlined in great detail. Thank you to staff in the packet, but just in case anyone didn't have a chance to look at them. But then after, during our closing remarks, you'll very likely hear from, depending on the comments that we hear tonight, from the other consultants who I just introduced. So after the July meeting, we went to great lengths to study and modify the plan and incorporate the feedback that we received. Just as a reminder, this was the plan that we presented in July, the building, parking lot, and landscaping holding the west property line along the alley, and this plan had 51 spaces. We did study the alternate plan, which I know the commission had asked us to do, but it still had concerns like we raised a few weeks ago, given the proximity of the proposed curb cut immediately adjacent to the alley, which then results in a very wide curb cut, which our consultants advised was an unsafe pedestrian condition, crossing not just a curb cut, but then an alley without any separation. It also had still had our circulation concern of not having separate access depending on how users were coming to the site. However, we believe this revised plan shown here accommodates the concerns regarding the alley access. As you'll see, kind of moving left to right on the screen, we shrunk the building, the footprint of the building itself, to allow for additional relief along that frontage, along the building. We then reconfigured the parking area, which did result in a loss of 4 parking spaces, but allows for an additional 8 feet of clearance entirely along the portion of the alley abutting the parking lot. Now, to be clear, the plan was intended to alleviate any potential congestion in the alley, but we still do not plan to allow for any queuing or stacking in the alley. And we plan to operationally instruct users to enter the site and park if they arrive early for pickup. And as shown in this plan, there is additional on-site queuing capacity with the various cars shown there. And additionally, we continue to be in agreement with the staff recommended condition to continue to monitor the alley operations following the facility opening. And here's a side-by-side. The other significant change that we wanted to present at the onset was with that additional setback. With that additional setback, there's this section shows the average 22-foot alley width, and then the average distance from the building itself to the homes to the west, which is about 75 feet. The revised building footprint also caused changes to the west elevation. This is the one that we proposed in July. And this is the one that is currently proposed. The fenestration, given the change on what was happening on the interior of the building and the revised footprint, meant that the exterior had to be adjusted to reflect those new plans on what's going on inside. That actually reduced the square footage overall of translucent panels on the west side of the building, which I know we also talked about extensively a few weeks ago. And here's the side-by-side showing that change. Like I said, we have additional materials to present later tonight, but we'll hold off and organize those in response to what we hear. But we look forward to discussing further and hearing additional feedback tonight. Thank you so much. Unless there are questions on what I just presented. Great.
I think we'll hold on questions until we've heard all, and we'll circle back to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move to the folks that were granted continuance requests. And I have a list right here. Everybody will get 5 minutes. And we will start with Aaron Cohn, followed by Sonia Cohn.
We're going to swap. I'm going to start first.
Okay.
I'm Sonia Cohen. I live at 2707 Prairie Avenue. Thank you, commissioners, for your hard work and for granting me a continuance. I look forward to the sports center in the neighborhood and am pleased that the Ishbia Foundation has submitted a new design with great potential. I have some observations and suggestions. According to the planning document, at peak hours, an estimated 40 kids will be going into the building and 40 kids will be leaving. That's 80 trips an hour. That's on page 135. On weekends, the number's even higher. Non-peak hours could see an estimated 40 to 72 drop-offs and pickups every hour to 90 minutes. And if the number of kids using the facility at any given time increases, those numbers may be much higher. The submission does not quantify the ebb and flow of parent pickup and drop-off. How many cars will be in the staging area at any given time on any given hour? How long will the average car have to wait? All this seems important to quantify. The revised proposal specifies an 8-foot wide lane on foundation property that borders the alley with no delineation between them. Cars will still be within the public alley at the north end to get into the staging lane. And I am concerned that the lack of delineation between the stacking lane, staging, and the alley creates an unsafe environment for children. Here are some plausible what-ifs. Parents avoid the stacking lane and let their child off in the alley, or conversely ask their child to meet them on the other side of the alley for pickup. There's nothing to stop them. The alley becomes blocked in one or both directions as cars wait to enter a stacking lane. And I'd like to just point that out on the illustration. So this is the north end.
We need you to speak into a microphone.
Oh. Okay, sorry. Okay, so this is the north end of the alley. There's a circle. Here's the alley cut. So what they're proposing, and these are additions right here, but what they're proposing is someone will drive into the alley and attempt to get into the stacking lane. Maybe they'll make it all the way in, or maybe they won't. But remember, this is a 16-foot alley, so no one's going to get through if there's anyone hanging out of that stacking lane. Further, if someone comes into the alley and thinks they're just going to go ahead and get into the stacking lane, go over here, get into the stacking lane, they're going to block the alley to do that. And the same situation on the south end. They've got two cars, people come up from the south, they wait to get into the stacking lane to pull into the parking lot. And in some cases, if this happens simultaneously, it's a bottleneck and everybody is stuck. So with that in mind, if it becomes blocked in one or both directions as cars wait to enter a stacking lane, again, parents might ask their child to use the alley to get to their game on time or to come out to the alleyway for pickup. Parents are busy people. They don't necessarily have a lot of time, and they might think it's safe for their kid to do that. Additionally, the submittal specifies entry on the left side of the alley from the north, essentially instructing drivers to go to the wrong way. This ignores traffic convention and is potentially unsafe, especially if a car or truck is heading north up a narrow alley very close to an 8-foot staging lane with no barrier. And again, if we go here to the north, okay, cars are coming up this way. If the semi-truck is coming up this way, you got just 16 feet. If, the cars are not completely in the lane, it could be a problem. Residents, trucks, and customers from other businesses use the alley and may add additional congestion. I will testify, I use the alley. I always park my car in the garage, and that's where I rely on leaving, getting my car out and driving out of the alley. So, or worse, they're driving up the alley. They fail to see a child in the alley while attempting to navigate a confusing space. Thank you. My husband will enumerate the proposed solutions to these issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Hi, good evening. I'm Aaron Cohen, also at 2707 Prairie Avenue. And thank you, commissioners and staff, for your great diligence in scrutinizing the Ishbia Foundation's new facility design. And as an immediate neighbor, I enthusiastically endorse the construction of this facility and want to thank the foundation for taking a big step closer to a viable and acceptable plan. From the outset, all parties have emphasized child safety as the greatest concern and the foremost factor driving design decisions. In that regard, a few problems concerning access remain, and I urge all parties to adopt the following pretty simple remedies. I'm going to show an illustration as well. But first I'll read this. One, make Jenks Street the sole entry point to the stacking lane, straightening the cut or making other modifications needed for safe access. There's Jenks. Two, erect a fence or other safety barrier that fully separates the facility's stacking lane from the alley. And the barrier should run from the north end of the building all the way to Jenks. And again, to keep kids from jumping out of their cars to get to that game because they're running late into the alley. It's happened to us a number of times where we are backing out of our garage and, ooh, somebody is speeding down that alley, and can be a close call. Number 3, eliminate any alley, curb cut, or entry into the stacking lane or pickup drop-off point. 4, eliminate the northbound stacking lane adjacent to the facility. So there's northbound, get rid of it, curb cut, get rid of it, have it, all the traffic come in through Jenks into the facility on the facility's property. Doing all these things will prevent kids from exiting or entering cars onto the alley and avoid any blockage of alley traffic. Remember, the alley carries northbound and southbound residential, commercial, and utilities vehicle traffic unrelated to the facility, and kids, I think, really need to be protected from that. Per Katie Dale's assumption of the need for a buffer between the alley and Jenks Street entrance, please note that we looked and we did not find an Evanston code requiring such a buffer. And I'm going to show you a photo of Gerber Auto at the south end of the alley that highlights this. Gerber Alley, there isn't a buffer there. Again, we are excited about the new facility. We think it's a great outcome for this property and believe our suggestions will enhance safety for everyone, especially children, and minimize the potential for congestion. We therefore respectfully request that the Land Use Commission send Ishbia Family Foundation's proposal to the City Council subject to the following conditions of approval. And potential language is as follows, and it's in your packets. I could read it, but basically it's the Land Use Commission would approve with conditions the requested variation on plan development for 2722 Green Bay Road based on the applicant meeting the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall provide entrance to the stacking lane solely from Jenks with no access to or from the alley, and they would do this by A, constructing a fence along the western edge of the stacking lane from the alley apron to the new, and we're suggesting bollards at the north end of the building to prevent car or pedestrian egress into the alley and into the oncoming traffic. B, installing a fence or bollards to prevent automobile entry into the drop-off pickup lane from the south, which would be at the north end of the building. And condition 2 would be the applicant shall design a Jenks Street entrance to the automobile stacking lane to facilitate ingress to the applicant's property with no encroachment on the alley. Again, thank you very much. We're looking forward to this sports and recreation facility, which we think will be win-win.
Thank you. All right, next I have Mark Jones, followed by George Halleck.
I'm speaking, I think you were notified, I'm speaking on behalf of Lynn and Mark Jones from 2675 Prairie.
Okay.
So these are their words. We have successfully lived on Prairie, backing up to a good commercial neighbors for 25 years, and we hope to have a good neighbor with this proposed building. We feel like it needs some minor adjustments to the current plan to be a good neighbor. At the Land Use Commission on July 22nd, the foundation stated that the lights at the proposed sports facility would be turned off at close of business approximately 8:30 p.m., but they could not commit to that time. This is a significant concern because there's every reason to anticipate that operating hours could ultimately be extended. We have identified 4 indoor sports facilities in the Chicago area that are open until at least 10 p.m., Once the facility is operating, the foundation may find that the additional revenue generated by extending operating hours provides a strong incentive to remain open later, resulting in the lights remaining on later as well. The impact on neighboring residences will be particularly significant during the winter months. It is dark by 4:30 p.m. during the winter. From that time onward, approximately 2,400 square feet of illuminated windows extending 30 feet in height along the west side of the building could emit significant light pollution directly toward the bedroom windows. The proposed windows would only be 16 feet from our property line. This is an unusually close relationship between a large illuminated commercial recreational facility and an adjoining residential property. The resulting light intrusion would occur during the very hours when residents are using their homes and bedrooms and when there is little natural daylight to diminish the effect. A similar window system to the one proposed by the foundation is currently in use at Robert Crown Center and the Levy Center. In both cases, the closest residential areas are hundreds of feet away, with intervening streets and streetlights that help mask or diffuse the impact of the light. The proposed foundation facility would place a large expanse of illuminated windows dramatically closer to an adjacent residence. The foundation is seeking approval to construct a building that is 20% higher than permitted by the applicable zoning code. A variance of this magnitude should not come without appropriate mitigation for the additional impacts imposed on neighboring residents. We are not asking that the proposed facility be prohibited from operation. We are asking for a straightforward, reasonable, and effective mitigation measure, that the foundation should be required to install power-operated blackout shades on the interior surface of all west-facing windows. The shades should be capable of reliably blocking the light during evening hours when the light would otherwise intrude into neighboring residences. This is a reasonable request, particularly given the extraordinary proximity of the proposed window system to our property and the fact that the foundation is seeking a 20% height variance. The foundation should not receive the benefit of the additional building height while leaving neighboring residents to bear the resulting impacts without effective mitigation. We respectfully request that the Ishbia Foundation proposal be sent to the City Council with the following condition of approval from the Land Use Commission. The Land Use Commission approves with conditions the requested variations to blah, 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 based on the applicant meeting the following condition. The applicant shall install solar-controlled, power-operated, dusk-to-dawn blackout shades on the interior surface of all west-facing translucent panels and windows. We hope that it is obvious that the goal is not to prevent the foundation from operating its facility. The goal is to ensure that the extraordinary impacts created by the proposed building, and particularly by its proximity and height, are appropriately mitigated so that the neighboring residents can continue to enjoy their homes without significant light intrusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is George Halleck, followed by David Cook.
George said he's not going to come.
My name is David Cook. I'm at 2683 Prairie Avenue, and I also want to talk about the lights. Thank you all for the work you do on behalf of the city of Evanston. The neighbors along the alley want this youth sports facility to be successful. We have, however, two serious concerns, what we've already talked about, dangerous traffic pattern that's been talked about already, and the lights, which Sherry Merrimont talked about. I would like to talk about the lights as well. The foundation is asking for significant zoning variances to construct a building that will be taller, larger, and with portions of the building closer to the neighboring homes than the current zoning allows. The upper portion of the building will contain large translucent panels that will allow natural light into the building, but at night, however, they will shine substantial amounts of artificial light into the neighborhood. The proposed windows will be approximately 16 feet from our properties. Imagine this wall of light, illuminated panels this close to your backyard and bedroom windows. I think it would be a problem. And talking to some of the real estate agents, they said that you would receive a diminution in value, because if you had two pieces of property that were similar, and you looked at one that had this light and one that didn't, you would naturally go to the other one, so you would receive a diminution of value. When questioned by the commission, the foundation had two responses to the light problem. They suggested that the light pollution would not be that bad, and they will turn the lights off at close of business. We basically reject both of those arguments. During the last meeting, the project architect reported measuring approximately 3-foot candles outside the Robert Crown Center, and I personally measured approximately 2.5 candles at the Levy Center. The city standard is 0.5-foot candles at the property line. That means that the light from the similar existing facilities is 5 to 6 times the city's standard. OSHA's standard for work in construction says that if you're going to do general construction or concrete placement, you need a minimum of 3-foot candles. So there's going to be enough light in that alley, more than enough light to do construction or to be placing concrete. This light level, I think, would be indeed bad. The foundation's other response has been that the facility would close at approximately 8:30 and the lights will then be turned off. We reject this argument as well for two reasons. One, during the winter, it's going to be, as Sherry talked about, the lights are going to be on, and it's going to be dark at 4:30, so we're going to be subjected to light for several hours. And then also the foundation is non-committal about the 8:30 closing time. If this facility is successful, there will be naturally a pressure to accommodate more users. There'll be pressure to open earlier and stay open later. The foundation did not appear to have a good handle on their anticipated expenses, since they could not even commit to the number of staff that would be working at any given time. If the foundation needs additional revenue, extending operating hours would be an obvious way to generate revenue. We looked around and we found that several facilities that were open till 10, midnight, and even later. What protection will the neighbors have 1 or 2 years from now when the facility is operating until 10 or 11 p.m.? We believe that there's a very simple, easy answer. Install power-operated blackout shades on the west-facing windows. We identified 4 manufacturers of commercial motorized shades. We spoke with representatives from Insul and Draper Shade. Both confirmed that they could manufacture and install shades large enough for the proposed windows. Draper provided us with a preliminary high budget. They said this is the top end. The estimate of probably $40 a square foot, or about $95,000 for the west-facing windows shown in the foundation's earlier plans. The budget estimate is less than 1% of what we believe to be the projected construction cost of the project. It should be well within their design and construction contingencies. So I think that it's not going to phase the project right now. We're not asking the commission to stop the project. We're asking the commission to require the foundation to mitigate an obvious impact that is being created, in large part because the foundation is acting for permission to build a taller, larger building closer to the homes than the zoning code otherwise permits. It's reasonable to require meaningful mitigation of the additional impact to the neighbors. It's impractical to build the facility first and then have neighbors spend years monitoring lights, filling complaints, and seeking enforcement of the building violates the city's lighting standards. That plan devalues the property, makes a mockery of the commission and the practice of architecture. The better solution is to prevent the identified problem before the building is built. A commission should not approve the current proposal unless the foundation commits to an effective and reliable solution to the light pollution problem. Power-operated blackout shades or another solution demonstrated to be equally effective should be incorporated into the project as a continuation condition of approval. We want this facility to succeed. We simply don't believe its success should come at the expense of peaceful enjoyment of the neighborhood homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that is those are all the people that were granted the continuances. Am I correct about that? Is there anybody else that was expecting to speak that was granted a continuance? No, okay. I also have a number of people that have signed up to speak, even though public comment is closed. However, because the because the proposal has changed and that packet has gone out and people have had an opportunity to consider that, I do want to allow those that have come here to sign up to speak, but for the normal amount of 3 minutes. So that is what I'm seeing. So let me figure out who that is. I think that's Sherry Mermont. Are you here?
We already spoke.
Oh, she already spoke. David Cook, you signed up again.
I'm just being sure.
It's all good. Okay, is there anybody here that is planning to speak again on the Green Bay Road Sports Facility? Okay. In that case, we will be done with that testimony. So could the applicant please come on back up and give us some closing statements and or respond to any of the concerns that you heard tonight?
Sure. Thank you again, Katie Jinky-Dale. I promised you weren't going to hear only from me tonight, but I'm going to MC a little bit. One item, though, at the outset, I just wanted to clarify or remind people of is the concerns about hours or the traffic counts changing over time, which you would maybe see in a different type of facility. We're really capped. There's only a number of fields in there, and that caps how many people can be playing at any given time. So I think that concern, while valid for other types of commercial uses, just doesn't work here because there can only be so many players on the field at any given time. Similarly, the fields are only sized for youth. There's a possibility that some high schoolers could do some short training in there. They couldn't play a game in there, both because of the size of the building as well as the ceiling clearance. And so I think that the hours are what they are because of when kids go to bed. But with that, I'm going to go kind of in reverse order of what we heard and first ask Brett Taylor from Gensler to come up and speak about the concerns about the lights. In particular, some additional conversations we had since the last meeting and measurements that we took with lighting consultants. I've been educated since the last meeting more on what foot candles are and what they kind of mean and translate into, including other uses in residential or in Evanston. And then also to talk about the interior operations and why blinds would be infeasible. So with that, Brett, if you could come up.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Brett Taylor. I'm with the architecture firm Gensler, and I'm going to talk about lights. I think first I just want to go back to the section just to be just 100% clear on the distances that we're talking here. So, when we revise the building design, we are actually bringing the building also an average of 8 feet away from the property line on that side of the outside of the alley conversation, which is another conversation, but that also creates an oblique angle to the alley, which is definitely another benefit for the perception of illuminance, not light transmission. I would also just like to say, while we understand that the alley is 16 feet, from the public alley, we are 100 feet on average from the face of our building to the face of homes where you would be affecting the residents. Just to put that in context, a typical city road is 66 feet, a right-of-way. So if you're building buildings up against a right-of-way, those buildings are 66 feet apart by any kind of code if you build up to that property line. So when we reference back, we have looked at the mitigation of these panels in a few ways. One, I don't disagree with, I don't want to fight over, light measurements, but when you look at the average light levels from the alley, if you just take natural illumination, it's roughly 2.5, right? So that's just what exists at night. So if we're saying our calculations are about 3, we are less than 1. So we are meeting that requirement of, light transmission from our building over, right? The other thing that we've done is that we've looked very carefully with our lighting designer. So you can see in this rendering is that by, making sure that the interior lighting is directed away from the translucent panel. The top of the windows will actually be darker where that's the most visible, so that our light levels at the top, which are where residents will have the most visible light from illumination, not light transmission. I just want to be clear, those are two different things. That it will be minimized because our light levels are actually shooting towards the interior of the building and we're not trying to illuminate the exterior of the wall. So like by controlling the direction of the interior lights, we can minimize the illumination, the perceived illumination of those walls. When you look at, again, when we look at Robert Crown, which is on Dodge Street, a residential street, it illuminates roughly 4.3 foot candles. We're about 3, so that's about 1 foot candle difference from what we're projecting to what exists. There are residents directly across the street, about 66 feet on a right-of-way, that are directly opposite Robert Crown. So that's the roadway width. There are homes directly across from Robert Crown. So the Levy Center, Robert Crown, when you look at that, those are kind of comparable measurements to what we anticipate our light levels to be at the alley line. When you look at that, I understand light levels of what you need for construction, but when you look at what people usually talk about in parking lot lighting is usually 2 to 3 foot candles. That exists at the Home Depot, that exists anywhere else. There's an opportunity for residents to add alley lights for safety. Alley lights are usually 3 to 5 foot candles for safety. Egress lighting needs to be 5 to 10 foot candles for safety. So even our doors, by code, the egress doors we have in alley will have to have a foot candle of 5 foot candles for safety, for egress. The light poles in the city of Evanston, which there's many articles everybody talks about, they're too dim. Those are 1 to 3 foot candles, which is what we're talking about. So that's a context for the light levels and what the illumination really is in kind of real time. So thank you. Oh, thank you. Sorry, Katie, remind me. We have a very complicated structure. The issue with blinds is that because we're a metal structure and you have beams and columns at 25 feet. Now, we just had a bunch of tornadoes and wind. To react to that wind, we need cross bracing. You need a lateral system. That lateral system sits on the exterior wall as cross bracing against the exterior wall. So if I have cross bracing in my panels here, there is no physical way for a blind to get between cross bracing of the structure system on the exterior and in that window. So we either put them outward, which then you get light leakage and it's not solving the problem, or we put them outside. That's not what anybody's practically asking for. So when we say last time, like the structure system, those cross bracing you have to have them. Otherwise, the structure of the building doesn't work. So it doesn't show in renderings, but that is practical. Those X bracing are imperative. Otherwise, the building doesn't work laterally. It doesn't support the wind load. Anything else? Did I miss anything? Okay.
Next, I'm going to ask Louis Abuna is going to come up and speak about traffic counts that they took, alley observations that KLOA collected, as well as overall operations with the alley. And then directly after him, John Bieberitz has been studying the circulation and safety that we've been discussing, is going to come directly up after him.
Good evening. My name is Louis Abuna, A-B-O-O-N-A. I'm a principal with KLOA. As Katie indicated, we originally conducted the traffic study and we looked at the traffic flow in the area and adjacent intersections. And since then, we've gone back and did extensive counts along the alley, both south of Jenks and in front of this site, as well as north of Jenks by Whole Foods. And what the counts essentially indicated that the alley in front of our site carries very low volume of traffic. It's indicative of the uses that are fronting it, the residential in nature, the homes and the garages. And the maximum amount of traffic that we measured on any single day over that 7-day period was a total of 39 vehicles throughout the day, 24-hour period. And it fluctuated, as low as 16 on a Sunday, 36 on Saturday. But those numbers obviously are very low when you take into consideration that it occurred over a 24-hour period. And then when you narrow it down in terms of the amount of traffic that the alley experienced during the hours of operation of the proposed facility, the numbers are even smaller. We're talking about 3 to 4 cars that were observed per hour during the hours of operation. So the alley itself generates very low volume of traffic. As far as making the connection to the alley, again, the intent of this connection is just to serve the drop-off and pickup. Will be an inbound only. In our traffic study, we looked at the maximum capacity of the facility in terms of having all four fields operational at the same time, all fields having maximum number of children, most of the children being driven, and all of them being dropped off or picked up. In reality, that's not going to happen on a regular basis. We expect more carpooling. We expect some parents to choose to park and stay in the facility, wait for their kids. We expect that some kids that may live in the neighborhood and be walking to the facility. So the numbers, what we have in the report, are really the maximum operational and maximum in terms of the assumption. But regardless of that, we believe that based on, even under those circumstances, the design of the site with the access off the alley, access of Jenks, the modification to the access to Green Bay Road, which will become a ride-out only, that would provide for efficient and safe flow of traffic in and out of the site. In addition, we have also provided the stacking diagram. Let me see if I can. Okay, there we go. So this diagram, which you saw earlier, shows clearly that we can stack up to 9 or 10 cars on site during the pickup operations. Obviously, during drop-off, parents will drop off their kids and leave, so that's going to be more of a moving queue of traffic in and out of the facility. During the pickup, we can easily stack up to 9 to 10 cars on site without impacting the alley. We have, in addition, proposed widening the alley to provide that 8 feet of buffer along the west side of the east side of the alley to provide any potential overflow in the case it occurs. The management of the facility will ensure that parents will not come early and park and wait for their kids, that the arrival for pickup would occur and timed when the kids are ready to leave the facility. So what happens then would be more of a moving queue, allowing for these kids to be picked up, and then they exit and leave on Green Bay Road. So we believe that collectively, based on all these design changes and what's being proposed, that this site should be accommodate the flow of traffic, both drop-off, pickup, as well as parents parking the site efficiently. Thank you. I'd like to turn it over to John now, talk about the internal.
Good evening, John Bierbritz, President of Traffic Analysis and Design. To give you some background on our company, we've done about 60 safety circulation studies for schools and sports facilities throughout the Midwest. And there are 3 key factors, principles or goals for safe and efficient movement of both pedestrians and vehicles. The first goal is really to separate parent pickup and drop-off from the parking area, both for drop-offs as well as ingress. What that means is to have a separate ingress for parent pickup and drop-off, separate from the parking, so we can maximize flow and maximize pedestrian safety throughout the area. What that means is really to have a separate access for inbound for pickup and drop-off, as shown in the diagram, off the alley, and a separate access for the parking lot only off of Jenks. This separates those 2 movements and keeps the parent pickup and drop-off totally separate from the parking as well. Second goal or principle is to separate the staff parking from parent parking. What we're proposing here is, you'll see the handicap spaces along the pickup drop-off. There's 3 spaces just east of that. Recommendation for those to be for staff only, not parents, because we don't want parents backing up into that queue. So we want all the parent parking to be within the parking lot itself and staff parking to be along the pickup and drop-off lane. Third principle is really to have effective signage and staff enforcement. What we mean by that is signage for the parent pickup and drop-off, instruct them to go way to the end of the site, in other words, the far east end, like with schools as well as with after-school activities. For that first month of school, in this case, the first month of opening, have staff on site basically motioning parents for that pickup to occur, essentially so the vehicles go all the way to the east end of the site to maximize that queuing storage capacity. In addition to that, a recommendation with all schools and sports activities, we want to have effective operations for that, as well as effective correspondence between the facility, parents for pickup and drop-off, operations, how it should work, how it works effectively for, more importantly, pedestrian safety as well as vehicular safety. Some comments were made regarding consolidating the access from Jenks to have all access off Jenks, parent pickup and drop-off, plus parking. We oppose that primarily from a safety standpoint and operation standpoint. We don't want parents dropping off kids within the parking lot as part of that pickup and drop-off. We want that to occur adjacent to the building so we don't have kids basically running through or crossing through traffic. We want that parent pickup and drop-off to occur separately from the parking area. As Louis mentioned, from an operations standpoint, with the 2 access points, one being for parent pickup and drop-off and one being specifically for the parking area, everything operates within acceptable standards for the city of Evanston with minimal delays and meets city standards for those types of operations. With that, any questions regarding traffic circulation, pedestrian access, anything else? Always up.
I'm sure we do, but is that the end of your presentation?
That does conclude our presentation. We just want to thank the commission. We know that you put a lot of work into preparing for these hearings, and also thank staff. I hope that we believe that we listened to what we heard last time. We made these changes at great expense by shrinking the building, and also now committing to improve that additional alley area along the parking area lot. But we're available for any questions or follow-up. So thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, questions from commissioners? Commissioner Limwell?
Okay. I wasn't planning on going
Oh,
first.
it seemed like you were about to.
But I will. Ms. Dale, at the last meeting, I asked what an appropriate, if we were to establish a condition for when the lights will be turned off. Did you think, or what's an appropriate time? If the facility's open till 8:30, is 9 the appropriate time, 10?
And maybe we didn't, I can't remember if we talked about it separately or last time, but what I think that we were thinking was an hour after closing, because that will fluctuate day to day, with a carve out for if we are by code required to have safety lighting. But yes, the primary lighting, we think an hour after closing to allow for cleanup and whatnot.
My thought was, except obviously for the emergency lighting, that the interior lights would have to be off by 10 p.m. unless you provide the kind of the screening to mitigate the silent or the light exposure. I mean, I know that at this point it doesn't seem that the screening and the blackout curtains are feasible, but again, I think that it's important that if the light, to mitigate the concerns that the facility will be wildly popular and you're going to be open until 11 or 12 at night. I mean, I think that I haven't heard anybody objecting to that necessarily, as long as there were blackout curtains. And I think that that's kind of like, I mean, this is kind of analogous to how the proposed staff condition for the monitoring the alley and the drop-off and pick-off would be. I just want to make sure that there is something to that effect within, the conditions for approval.
One idea that Eric had that I just don't know the answer to right now is if we had something like similar with other or hours, or have the lights off consistent with other similar facilities. I don't know when Robert Crown turns their lights off, but
well,
okay.
Can I ask a broader question about the light? And Jeremiah, can you help me with this? The city of Evanston has light trespass provisions. Is that correct?
The zoning code actually does not.
Oh, we don't. Okay.
Does not. Yeah.
I see. All right. Thank you.
Does any other code?
I'm just trying to anticipate not having this be a long-term issue. I mean, your intent is to close by 8:30 or thereabouts, and having a certain amount of time for to clean or reposition the facility for the next day or whatever seems reasonable. But, living in a situation where I do have lots of alley lights, I know that in the winter in particular, even light that is angled down toward the ground can be intrusive. So these are fairly high up in the ground, or in the air.
Yeah. No, I think we'd be open to a condition related to lights being turned off at a certain, like an hour after closing, consistent with Robert Crown, if we want to use a name or something like that. And then we could work with staff to kind of refine it with more information. I'm surprised. I know the zoning code doesn't have a light regulation, but I feel like there has to be one maybe in a different section of the Evanston code, so we can do a little more research there too, or under state law, to be honest. So. Oh, I just don't know that.
Okay, but I mean, I think that
Certainly.
that was, the question is whether or not you'd be open to that kind of a condition.
We'd be open to a condition about that for sure.
Because I think that, a lot of lights are on until 9 or 10, but after that, when you've got bedrooms facing the back, even a glow can be disconcerting.
Yeah, understood. We'd be open to a condition.
Okay, thank you.
Other commissioners?
Yeah. So, I have a few
Commissioner
questions.
Mabadi.
Thank you. I have a few questions. Is it your testimony that you cannot put blackout curtains or blackout devices in this design as it sits? It's not possible to do?
I don't know if we could say that it's not possible, like that.
Let me rephrase.
We're all under oath, but it's definitely infeasible. Both, there is a cost implicated. I don't think it's as de minimis as was, but I'm not in a position to cross-examine on that. But I don't think it's as de minimis as they said. But then it's impractical and not feasible. In addition to the cross-bracing, keep in mind there's mezzanine, like that second level that we would have to contend with as well. And then I think our testimony certainly is that we don't believe they're necessary.
Yeah, I gather that you don't feel they're necessary. And I'll just say this. I live on a street that borders Chicago Avenue. I live on Hinman. Mm-hmm. So, and I bought with that eyes wide open that I'm going to have a car dealership behind me. And there were some concerns about that. And it turned out that it worked out very well. At the same time, I can hear their air conditioning running at nighttime if I pay attention. So things that initially seem to be workable solutions may solve some of the problem, but it may not really get you where you need to, where the neighbors would like you to be. So as a good neighbor, and we had some issues with the car dealership, and we spoke to them, and they were good neighbors, and everything worked out. And these people here are very interested in being a good neighbor with you, and I feel like you guys are interested in being a good neighbor with them. So we're back to the question. Regardless of the light studies, regardless of anything, just simply from a good neighbor standpoint, is there a way to cover these windows? It's a yes or no answer. Because I have a second part to this if it's a no answer.
I think the answer is no.
Okay, can you change the size of the windows? Can you make, for example, you have these very vertical windows. Why not go to like 40% and have transom windows running across the top? If you want to get light from sunlight, there's a point to where that sun is not going to deliver much benefit for you. So why not, then you're going to resort to overhead lighting. So why not allow the windows to be reduced so that you can get the benefit of the sunlight without having the glow at nighttime of the whole lighting structure that you have inside the space? That would not affect your structural design. It would just be the skin on the outside of the building, not have it to be glass.
So you're suggesting that we would make them smaller, but
Keep it as vertical as it is, but
Okay.
bring it up so you're reducing the gross square footage of the lighting that's coming out. The illumination box to become 40% of what it is.
I have to. I'm gonna have to
All
ask
right, so,
Brett to take that one. Sorry.
I'm hearing that this is a suggestion for them to consider.
Right.
I don't want to get too bogged down in specific design changes in this meeting. We're not a design review body. And also, there's going to be another opportunity for the applicant to take their case to City Council after they receive our recommendation one way or the other. So I think they're hearing that this is a suggestion.
Yeah, this is a suggestion that I think might address everyone's concerns. Your concerns, the neighbor's concerns. You'd get the benefit of the sunlight. You'd get to be able to reduce the amount of ambient light that's being pushed out into the back of the neighborhood, and it's something to look at. That's possible.
Okay,
So let me move on to the next thing. I'm still not clear. I remember when this was Jewel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when it was Jewel, there was ingress and egress traffic, a lot of it, where it was retained on lot. It was not, people weren't running down the alley with their cars and shopping carts. They were inside, boxed in. So it seems to me that we're back to the design. And my question is, does the facility have any space within the facility to accommodate like a cafeteria or a place where parents would congregate and watch their kids? Or would you say that the bulk of the transit is drop-off? Like, I'm trying to get a sense of the scale of the drop-off.
So Brett did some interior renderings that we saved for questions about the revised design, but this is what the interior of the building looks like. So this is the entry. There's some batting cages. There is going to be a small cafe, but not I don't know if you say cafeteria, but it's going to be small, Gatorade and popcorn.
Okay.
But then there's that mezzanine viewing level that I was talking about. So yes, we expect there will be a lot of drop-offs. I apologize to my parents that I said last time that I would have been one of them, but there also are certainly areas for people to park. So conservatively, Lue assumed for his traffic study purposes that everyone would be dropping off, and that was just to be conservative. But certainly we hope people stay and watch their kids.
Okay, so can you go back to the screen where you have the parking? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm curious as to what's the necessity of having any parking. Now, maybe we need to have a few, but like you could create 3 pull-in lanes inside where that parking lot is, where cars could come in off of Jenks and they could pull right in, and they'd have lane A, lane B, lane C, where they could literally pull in and park and wait for the kid to walk out, and not have all that land sitting there empty 80% of the time, 70% of the time, that you could create. I don't know if this is possible, but to me, when you have, I'm positive from my personal experience that you're going to have people in that alley waiting there for their kids. There's no doubt in my mind about it. And because of that, I think that you need to look at this traffic pattern not from a study standpoint, but from an applicational standpoint, that you can ask people in the community what's happened elsewhere. Because like I mentioned in our last meeting, I would drop my kids off at Haven. I'd sit in the alley. I mean, it just happens. I have friends who do the same thing. It's not a question. It does happen. I don't care what any study says. It happens, and it's going to happen there. And that's why I'm thinking that maybe redesigning the parking configuration to give yourself 2 or 3 drop-off lanes. You could domesticate the path for ingress so that you don't tie up that alley, because I think that's going to really be a stumbling block. I appreciate what you've done with the scaling back the building and pitching it a little bit, but you really probably don't even have to do that if you could figure out a way to domesticate the ingress.
Commissioner, that's a really good suggestion. It actually kind of sounds like when you go to the grocery store and they have like the 3 spots or whatever that says reserved for online pickup or something. We could certainly look into that. I don't know if John has done that at any of the other 60 facilities he's done, but we could definitely consider. I don't even think it would require a site plan change. It would just be designating some of the parking for you get there 10 minutes early and you know that you're 10 minutes early, pull onto the site.
I mean,
Something we could
you
look
can
at.
do that. I think you can feel the energy. People want this here, but the issues that we're talking about are very much alive and disconcerting for all this. So that's why I was thinking of
No, it's a really good idea.
Okay.
I hadn't thought of it. I don't know if the team did before, but like I said, there's precedent. They do it in other uses, and I think we could just do that with signage if needed.
Okay.
It's a great idea.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? I had a question. It does seem to me that the portion of the alley where now more space has been created for queuing would benefit from some sort of marking or designation to at least, I don't know about a whole fence, but like at least lane marks or something to designate or encourage cars to move to the left, right, and queue up. Is that part of the plan?
So we wouldn't typically, I work on a lot of projects where we do this kind of widen an alley onto our property to alleviate concerns. We wouldn't typically demarcate it because we don't want it, if a truck is coming down the alley and a neighbor is going the other way, like use it. We want it to be used not just by the facility. I know the staff very helpfully, showed the number of cars in there, but we don't want it to be a queuing lane. We do not want to have cars queuing in the alley. We just thought that it was a good way to address the concerns of the catastrophic what if, and it's not working. How will people still get through this alley? So we don't see it as a queuing area or anything exclusive. And so, the physical separation doesn't work because funneling cars down an 8-foot wide area just it defeats the whole purpose. But if you wanted us to explore doing some sort of marking, we could. But I think that the intent here is it really is a public benefit, and a lot of times it's seen as a public benefit when we do alley widening on other projects, because it's going to help not just our site during our access, but I think probably deliveries are mostly in the morning. We won't be here in the morning, and we want to help alleviate other people's concerns too.
Okay. Okay, if there are no more...
I have.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
Commissioner Harris-Free.
So I also like the possibility of this happening, and I appreciate that the neighbors are bringing solutions to some of their concerns, but I still am very hesitant about the alley being used as one of the main ways to access the building. I know that they said the parking study, they've done a lot of these about, parking studies that involve kids. So have they seen any that have used alleys in this way?
In an urban environment, sometimes they're used. Most likely, it's a smaller side street, in which case it does require some widening to accommodate. As Louis mentioned before, in the case that if there was extensive queuing during a game that lasts longer, for example, there would be space within the widened alley for that if that would occur.
And what are the expected ages of the kids? I know it's supposed to be younger kids accessing this facility, right?
Correct.
12 and under, but I don't think we have a younger, or I don't know when kids start playing baseball, but 12 and younger is the anticipated age.
Okay. So I just think like it's a bad look to pick up your kid 12 or under late. Like you want to be there on time, and so I think people will arrive early or be trying to make sure they have plenty of time to get their kid or going with their kid. So I just think this plan still is falling short for me in terms of how the alley's used and the flow of the parking lot.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicants? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I will close the record and we can move on to commissioner deliberations. What do you think of this project? Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple questions for staff. Is this the appropriate time?
Sure.
So I had a question. What existing parking controls are there on Prairie? Do they require hang tags, residential permits?
Yeah, there's no parking in the mornings unless you have a residential parking pass.
Okay. So I noticed somewhere in here we talk about one of the conditions, I think it was, prohibiting the employees of the facility from parking on Prairie. We've already kind of taken care of that with the current parking controls on Prairie, or should we consider adding something additional?
I think the current parking controls would only address parking during those morning times. So this condition addresses parking outside of that.
Okay. I had a question. Actually, I think this is for Mr. George. And this was discussed a little bit last time. It was about the property tax assessment. So there's something in here. This is in the department recommendation to. I guess I have a question about this language that it's page 42 of our packet, and it's point number 2. That last sentence of it. All reasonable means available to it to prevent the reduction in the amount of property tax assessed to the property in future years. So there was a little bit of conversation last time about would they be able to appeal their tax assessment like all property owners do. How would that work? Or do we need to clarify this?
I'm not super versed on this, but I believe they would be able to appeal.
If I may jump in too. Catherine Penrose in the law department actually wrote this condition for us, but the intent is to keep it at the fair market value. So this condition gives them enough flexibility to still be able to appeal the assessment of their taxes if they believe that it's being taxed at a value higher than fair market value, but the intent is not to allow them to drop below that or reduce it in any other manner other than through a normal appeals process.
And then to seek nonprofit status, elsewhere in our packet it says they would agree to not seek nonprofit status and do away with property tax in general.
Correct. So this would keep them on the tax rolls.
Keep them on tax rolls.
Yep. At the fair market value or being assessed at the fair market value.
Okay. And they could appeal their taxes like any property tax owner that many of us appeal our taxes. They would do the same thing. Okay.
Correct.
And the law department wrote this.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question just for staff. Condition number 4 from the original packet talks about the applicant being required to revise the site plan to expand 2 landscaping islands. Does that still apply based on the revised layout?
No, so that condition was removed. The revised layout added the 2 landscape islands. So that condition was taken out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I have a couple questions for staff. Well, before that, Chair, is it our plan to vote for this tonight?
Yes.
Are we allowed to vote to approve, subject to some specific changes that need to be because accomplished later? Because we're seeing these requests, which I think some of these requests are aligned with our concerns. Are we able to approve subject to, say, resolution of parking or resolution of traffic or resolution of lighting or whatever is that allowable?
I mean, you're going to approve subject to, but you want to make sure that you're clearly, outlining what it's subject to. So, resolution of parking is, I don't know what that means. So,
Right. No,
yes.
the idea would be to keep it vague on purpose, that we would be able to just have a wide discussion because there might be, I don't know I wouldn't know how to make it that tight. I wouldn't say resolution of parking, but we have a, I think, well, we'll find out, but I think there's a number of members of the commission that are concerned about the use of the alley, and the community is concerned about it. So I'm trying to figure out how we could, I don't want to say no, I want to say yes.
Our goal isn't right now to come up with a new design. So I think the concerns that you articulated earlier have been heard. If there's a way to capture it in an extremely specific and clear condition that we all feel is possible, we could do that. But I'm very hesitant to try
see
that.
So let me ask you one question. If you recall, we had a hearing where for some townhomes on Central Street, and we asked the candidate if he wanted to withdraw and rework his design. He said, no, vote. So we voted.
Well,
can we do that?
So, but let's be clear. We're not saying yes or no. We are making a positive or a negative recommendation, and then they're going to take that to City Council, based on, and then they will have an opportunity to consider the feedback they heard tonight, and if they want to change something again, they can. But tonight we're voting on whether or not we are approving the variations that they're requesting from the code, if based on meeting the standards. But we're not a design review body.
Well, then just tell me then, when we offered an exit for this prior candidate on Central Street who built for these townhomes, we offered him an exit. What was the reason to do that?
I'm not going to comment on a prior case right now.
Commissioner Mabadi, there is a recommended condition of approval on the alley, and it's basically stating that if after operations it's observed that operations in the alley are causing problems, then the city can come in, and the applicant will have to work with the city to resolve those problems. That could be having people out there monitoring from the staff level to make sure people are moving along. That could be staggering of events to greater than 15-minute intervals to decrease the amount of overlap. There are a number of different things and strategies the petitioner would have to work with staff on to address issues on the alley if they are observed. So that is a condition of approval that is in there.
Okay. Any other deliberations?
Well, I'm generally in favor. I think that the revised alley configuration has got a chance to work. I think it's far preferable than the original proposal. I am still concerned, as I said, about the lighting, so I want to understand. So the staff condition number 4 is no longer applicable? Is that correct?
The previous staff report
Yes.
had condition 4 that was no longer applicable under this version of the staff report.
Oh, that's the old one. So if
Correct.
I'm looking at the current thing, 4 is.
4 is, yeah, if you're
Okay.
looking at the current
Well,
staff report.
I'd like to, kind of get people's thoughts, because I'd like to propose a condition that would read something like, except for required emergency lighting, interior lights will be turned off by 10 p.m. unless blackout screening is provided to mitigate the visual impact of interior lights on adjacent properties. And I kind of want to know what the thoughts is. 10 o'clock good? Should it be 9 o'clock? I don't want to go with an hour after closing, because who knows what closing could be. I'd like to have a specific time. Commissioner Mangum wants to.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Mangum.
I'm not sure if we can put or should put an actual time, because the facility hasn't opened yet, and how long does it take to clean this facility? How many people will be cleaning it? I'm not sure.
Well, and they could clean it in the morning too when it's not in use.
Okay, yeah, that's true too.
But I
Okay.
think that the reason for having a specific time and not an hour after closing is that closing can be indefinite. If they decided they want to keep it open until midnight, an hour after closing would be one.
What if we were to say within a reasonable time after closing, but not, they have to turn them off definitely by midnight or something like that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a time that would be appropriate. I was thinking 10, but I'm certainly open to kind of suggestions. But I really think it's probably important as one of the conditions to address the lighting issue. And and it could be, if they've got the screening and it's dark, I don't care. It could be open at midnight. So that's kind of why I want to, either they provide screening or not. So that's kind of my thought.
But I guess if it's mostly 12 and under, then it's probably going to be closed earlier rather than later. So, maybe
Yeah.
10 o'clock works.
But, again, there could be high school students, but you want them home too. That's,
I could see where there'd be applications that would go past typical timeline. Summertime, kids stay up later. And there's kind of more of a looseness to that schedule. And I could see maybe, I don't know your business, but maybe you'd have events like party events or some celebratory event that could run late. And those are all things that create light. And but I suppose if you could get it to a certain time, like you're suggesting, that would help. But I'm just not clear about their business well enough to know like what that would mean.
Commissioner Johnson.
I appreciate all the deliberation about the light. I just wanted to ask you, Mr. Chair, do you want our general comments on the project at this point, or should we stick to the light?
We're deliberating, so we can share comments. We can also propose conditions.
Yeah, I mean, about the light, because Commissioner Linwell started to talk about general comments, and I want to I want to offer mine as well. With the light, I understand the neighbors' concerns that spoke tonight. I also understand that we don't have specific lighting regulations within the city code that is our purview. And then in my personal experience, my house is on an alley. My house is actually in 2 alleys. I have an alley, kind of a fake corner lot situation. And so I have the entry to my house faces the alley. When I replaced some light bulbs, when I moved in the house, it was much brighter. And every single neighbor on the alley, every single one of them came up to me and said, "Thanks for replacing those light bulbs. It's much brighter. I like it for safety and security." So I hesitate, and this is just me personally, to legislate in a detailed way the lighting situation, because there may be other users of the alley that appreciate a little bit more ambient light in the evening, in a later time where people are still awake, maybe 10, 11 o'clock, to have a little bit more light for safety and security. I know I'm out there taking out the recycle or whatever in the evening, and that's That's why I put more light bulbs in the fixtures that the previous owner just let burn out and never replaced the light bulbs. So I don't know. This lighting question is a tough question. I don't have the answer to it, but I will say that the revision, I do appreciate the revisions that the applicant made and came back with. You know, for all these types of, for all the site development allowances that we review, I mean, I look at how far beyond the ordinance are they, or how far beyond what they could build by right, and what are they asking for, and is it an egregious ask? And I don't see any egregious asks here. 10 feet taller than they're allowed to build. The FAR, they brought it closer to what they're allowed to build by right. They reduced the size of the building. Good. You know, the transitional height plane encroachment is so minor that I'm fine with it, even though we had a discussion about a barrel roof, which I would have preferred architecturally, but I'm not gonna die on that hill. The pedestrian area requirements along Green Bay Road, they just aren't appropriate to require those things given how development has gone with the Whole Foods and the auto repair place. Green Bay Road is not, we're never gonna make it a pedestrian walkway, right? I mean, when I'm over in that neighborhood, I walk down Prairie instead of down Green Bay. That's, you know, I bike, I jog on the road that's kind of more designed for it. So I like their revisions. I think that they are very close to what they could build by right anyway. And I think that the asks that they're making are appropriate and warranted for this particular project and the surrounding neighborhood. So I am in favor, in support of this application.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I also agree that the variances being sought are extremely reasonable and limited to the extent of what is necessary just to achieve what they're trying to do, especially with the text amendment as well. We haven't really talked about that as much, but I appreciate that it was an extremely specific carve out for essentially this project, which is reasonable as well. Okay, any other deliberations? All right, with that, oh, sorry.
I was just still thinking more about the parking aspect of it and using the alley. And I wonder, you know, I do appreciate that widening the alley can be used if no cars are there, not when it's heavy drop-off pickup time. So I'm wondering, is there like a condition that can be made that, well, maybe not permanent bollards, but there are like some movable ones or some that can be retracted. Is that a condition we can add, or is that getting too specific?
If the commission were to go that route, I would want, well, my recommendation would be to make a condition that's loose enough that we can discuss it as staff with our public works staff to make sure that it's acceptable to them too. So I wouldn't want to be specific from the dais, but give us the ability to work with public works to identify a solution with the applicant that would work.
Are you able to provide us language of what that might look like?
Sure. So something like the applicant shall work with city staff to explore possible stacking lane delineation in the alley prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Could we also include stacking lanes inside the property?
Like explore stacking lanes within
Explore
the
stacking,
parking
like
lot?
we had discussed, because they had expressed a positive response to the
Yeah.
possibility of that.
I mean, I think we have to kind of look at it holistically, right? I mean, like we're not going to look at it like just showing like what's potentially going to be happening in the alley. So, you know, I think we can look at it holistically and write it in that way.
I'm trying to understand how that would differ from condition number 3 about the alley pickup. I mean,
because that's after, if it becomes problematic.
Right.
That's after the fact rather
But-
than trying to find solutions now before it begins.
Kind of what I was talking about is to be a little bit more proactive about possible striping or delineations in that alley without trying to get super specific to it, like just giving us enough flexibility to look at it with Public Works, get their expertise in on it. It could result in no delineation potentially, depending on what the technical experts say about it, but it gives us enough power to be able to work with the applicant to find
To at least see if there are options.
Options, yeah.
Right.
So, I believe the applicant is as sincerely concerned about the well-being of the children as anybody else. So here's a question. Could we ask that they have a crossing guard, a person on premises? Because we were talking about driver and parent habits. I'm wondering if we could have a person there to assist them in developing their habits for a period of 12 or 24 months so that we could see where this goes. And if they need to keep them, I'm sure they would keep them because they don't want anybody to have their children injured. And because it might be a very valuable person to have in that lot, making sure things are moving smoothly, or maybe it's not necessary and it could be disbanded. Is that something that we could add?
It's part of the condition. So if they open up and we determine that they need staff members out in the parking lot to help assist with drop-off pickup, then we can require that they do that.
Okay. Thank you, Sam.
As part of the existing condition.
Correct.
Yes.
Got that. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out.
Well, I think my concern with that, though, is that this parking configuration is already confusing enough that if we're not starting right at the top with somebody to help folks understand where they're supposed to go, like a parking guard or delineations of some kind, then we're already the problem's there. Then we're trying to walk it back after people have been using it.
So what condition would you like to see in order to satisfy your concern?
Well, I think like what Jeremiah was proposing, that the applicant will work with city staff to explore delineation options for the stacking lanes or explore stacking lanes within the parking lot.
Okay, so it's the same as the current condition, but from the proactive stance now.
Correct.
So it's prior to issuance.
Prior to the issuance of the permit.
And that's not going to impact, because there's not a required parking, that can all be handled internally by staff. Okay.
Can we do that with a person on premise to do that?
I'm not sure that that's necessary.
That's a little prescriptive.
I wouldn't add the person.
If they want to have somebody who's monitoring, and I would imagine for the first month or so they might. So I don't know that it's necessary to insist. I mean, clearly we've got a new facility that's being proposed. No one knows exactly how it's going to function. And so I think that maintaining some degree of flexibility is reasonable, but I think also, I would support that, adding that condition. And, and I feel similarly about some sort of a shut-off time for lights. I'm not,
Okay, so I'm hearing two proposed conditions. One is about the proactive requirement to work with staff about parking improvement or traffic flow improvement, and one is about proposing a specific major light shut-off time. That's what I'm hearing. Okay.
I'm sorry, one last thing. I just wanted us to reconfirm that you're telling me that we have the ability to tell them 6 months out, hey, we're getting complaints from parents or from whatnot, we need more staff there, and they're obliged to comply to our demand to staff up that parking lot? Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Commissioner Mangum.
I think the way that this staff has written the current conditions, I see there are 8 conditions. They seem to be, I'm not sure if we need additional conditions in regards to lighting or the parking issue. We're not like Public Works or I'm just not sure we need it, but we can vote on it, I guess.
Okay. I need to move on to reading the standards, and I need to do so with a clear understanding, with everybody knowing what conditions we're going to add on. I'm hearing a consensus about those two I mentioned. Would the addition of either of those two change your vote on whether the standards are met? Commissioner Johnson?
I mean, I'm with Commissioner Mangum on this one. That I think the conditions as is kind of cover these concerns, but the belt and suspenders approach of adding two more does not change my vote. I still support the project.
Okay. Commissioner Mangum, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I support the project, but I'm just not sure we should be that specific, like with the lighting and the other parking issues. But
well, the parking one is not specific, and it's intentionally very open to have a discussion and in a proactive way, right? I hear you on the prescriptive part of the lighting shutoff time, but I'm also hearing that the consensus is that we do want it.
well, the parking one, is this the one where you're asking them to hire someone and have them in the parking lot?
No.
Okay, all right.
This is the one that if that the applicant will work with staff prior to issuance of a building permit to see if it's a better solution, essentially. For the traffic patterns.
For the traffic pattern, or to delineate the stacking lanes.
Yeah.
Well, how does that differ from condition number 3?
Because condition number 3 is after the fact, and this is prior to. Condition
a lot-
number 3 assumes that it has opened, and now there is an issue with how it has been configured, and so you're trying to retroactively solve the issue.
Yeah, condition number 3 gives the city the power to do either later. What we're talking about is before, to anticipate the problem in advance a little bit. So those two conditions are meaningful to me.
Okay, and to be clear, the second condition on the lighting shutoff, I heard we need to be specific about what we're talking about. I heard that proposed as 10 p.m.
Yeah, and the way I written it, except for required emergency lighting, interior lights will be turned off by 10 p.m. unless blackout screening is provided to mitigate the visual impact of interior lights on adjacent properties. So I'm, again, proposing that this gives the applicant flexibility in the future that, you know, there could be, the facility could be open later, the lights could be on later if they have mitigated the visual impact of the lights on adjacent property owners, is what I'm proposing. And, you know, so it gives them some option. So I'm trying to provide some flexibility in addition to protecting the neighbors.
Okay. With that, I want to move on to the standards.
Do we vote on those
Do we need to
conditions
vote on the
first?
conditions?
We suggest the conditions and then vote on those, and then take
I mean,
the standards
I'll
and total,
second,
right?
the
Okay,
you know,
yes.
the parking one. So we have a
Jeremiah, do you need me to restate it, or you feel like?
I can restate it if you'd like. So so the one regarding delineation of stacking lanes and parking, what you're saying. So the applicant shall work with city staff to explore possible stacking lane delineation in the alley prior to the issuance of a building permit.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Jeremiah, why don't you call a roll?
Bear with me here. Commissioner Harris-Free?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Vice Chair Linwall?
Yes.
Commissioner Mombadi?
Yes.
Commissioner Mangum?
Yes.
And Chair Puctel?
Yes. Okay, so that will be a condition we add. And now, Commissioner Linwall, can you articulate?
Sure.
your condition.
Okay, except for required emergency lighting, interior lights will be turned off by 10 p.m. unless blackout screening is provided to mitigate the visual impact of interior lights on adjacent properties.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Let's vote.
Commissioner Harris-Free,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Linwall,
Yes.
Commissioner Momabadi,
Yes.
Commissioner Mangum,
Yes.
and Chair Bucktel.
Yes. Okay, so those will be the two conditions we add on. Now I'm going to move to standards of approval. And are we comfortable doing the standards and a final vote for both parts of this application, the text amendment and the allowances?
You can go through them both at the same time and vote on them at the same time. It's really more important that the city council do it separately because they're doing the ordinance for the text amendment first. You're just making a recommendation, so you can combine it all into one if you're comfortable with that.
Great. In it, so I'm seeing that there's standards for the text amendment, the special use, and the plan development. Is that right? Okay. Similar to a prior chair of this commission, I would like to suggest a work item to create like a matrix to combine all of these standards into something that is a bit more manageable and practical during meetings, that is still compliant with the code, so that for the sake of efficiency. Thank you. But for tonight, we will do it this way. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go through the standards and I will try to capture the consensus of what I'm hearing. And if you I'll pause after each one, and if you disagree with what I've concluded, just state so, and we'll move forward.
Can we just let us know what page you're on so we can follow
Which one, I'm
along?
sorry?
What page you're on so we can follow along.
Yeah. It's also up on the screen, I think, right? Yeah. Okay. For the Land Use Commission to recommend that the City Council grant an amendment to the text of the zoning code. The Land Use Commission must find whether the proposed amendment is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Comprehensive General Plan as adopted and amended from time to time by the Council. This standard has been met. We are modifying the text in an extremely specific way just for this property and not changing the overall intent of the code. Number 2, whether the proposed amendment is compatible with the overall character of existing development in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. We saw why the Green Bay Road area overlay district is has its intent, but we're changing, we're carving out an allowance as a practical manner for what that zone is in reality. Number 3, whether the proposed amendment will have an adverse effect on the value of adjacent properties. We haven't seen strong evidence to that regard, so that standard is met. Number 4, the adequacy of public facilities and services. That standard is met, as we've been seeing evidence that it has accommodated commercial uses of similar scale in the past, and that is unchanged. Okay, moving on. For the Land Use Commission to recommend that the City Council grant the special use, the Land Use Commission must find that the proposed special use is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. That standard is met as it is. Number 2 is in keeping with the purpose of the policies of the adopted Comprehensive General Plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time. That standard is met as we are filling a vacant space and providing a public good. Number 3, will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effects of various special uses of all types on the immediate neighborhood and the effect of the proposed type of special use upon the city as a whole. This standard is met, although we have heard concerns about negative impacts. I'm not convinced that they actually are there to the extent as it's been described, and it's certainly not to the extent that would that would counterbalance the positive benefits of this development. Number 4, does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. This standard is met, as we have not seen conclusive evidence to that fact. Number 5, can be adequately served by public facilities and services. That standard is met, as the site already did so for similar bulk and sizing properties. Number 6, does not cause undue traffic congestion. This standard is met considering the fact that we have added 2 specific conditions to the motion, both addressing the traffic congestion in a proactive way and in a reactive way, and considering that the applicant has done a very good faith job in modifying the plans to acknowledge these concerns. Number 7, preserves significant historical and architectural resources. That is not applicable. 7. Oops, sorry. Yeah, I got it. Thanks. Number 8, preserves significant natural and environmental features. That is not applicable. And 9, complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances, except to the extent such regulations have been modified through the plan development process or the grant of variation. This development will comply with all other regulations of the C2 and overlay district regulations. Okay, and finally, for the Land Use Commission to recommend that the City Council grant the plan development with the requested site development allowances, the Land Use Commission must find, number 1, that the requested site development allowances will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties that is beyond a reasonable expectation given the scope of the applicable site development allowances of the plan development location. We have heard concerns about these, but reorienting ourselves to the extent of the allowances, they're actually quite modest and are generally in compliance with the code. Number 2, the proposed development is compatible with the overall character of existing development in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. We've seen that along Green Bay Road, there are multiple other examples of similar size and bulk buildings. Number 3, this development site circulation is designed in a safe and logical manner to mitigate potential hazards for pedestrians and vehicles at the site and in the immediate surrounding area. We've talked about this, about the conditions, both proactive and reactive, and acknowledged the good faith estimates, good faith efforts of the applicant to mitigate this. Number 4, the proposed development aligns with the current and future climate and sustainability goals of the city. They are going to be in compliance with the green building ordinance. So that is met. And finally, number 5, public benefits that are appropriate to the surrounding neighborhood and the city as a whole will be derived from the approval of the requested site development allowances. We haven't talked about this much, but it's worth noting that reconstruction of the entire alley is an enormous public benefit and will be helpful. In addition to the conditions we're putting on the continuant of property tax revenue going forward. Okay, with that, I think we're ready for a vote.
Okay, with respect...
Or a motion, excuse me.
Motion, yes. We can vote too. With respect to plan development and special use at 2722 Green Bay Road, 26 PLND-0040, and the text amendment to the Central Street Corridor Overlay District, 26 PLND-0039. I move that we recommend approval to the City Council with the addition of the, I guess now, 10 conditions noted in the application on page 22, and including the 2 we just added.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Can we please have a vote?
Commissioner Harris-Free?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Limbaugh?
Yes.
Commissioner Mambadi?
Yes.
Commissioner Mangum?
Yes.
And Chair Pucktell?
Yes. 6 in favor and 0 against. That motion passes, and we will be making a positive recommendation to the City Council. Thank you very much. You can follow up with city staff for next steps. Okay, I think we are due for a break before moving on to the next part of the agenda. I see it's 8:56. Let's come back at 5 minutes after at 9:05. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. The next item on the agenda is the major variation at 1916 Grant Street. Can the applicant for that please come up to the lectern and tell us about your project?
Do you want me to read it into the record?
Oh, yes, please, thank you.
No problem.
I
All
didn't
right,
want
thank
to
you, Chair.
overshadow you, the chairman.
That's all good. Aaron Myrold, sorry if I mispronounced that, applicant property owner requests a major variation from the zoning ordinance, section 6-6-4, that states except when permitted pursuant to a major variation, a non-complying structure devoted in whole or in part to a non-conforming use shall not be enlarged or added to in any manner, including the interior addition of floor area in order to construct a 2-story addition to an existing 2-family residential building, enlarging the structure and increasing the interior floor area for both dwelling units in the R1 single-family residential district, where a 2-family dwelling is not a permitted use. The applicant may seek and the Land Use Commission may consider additional variations or zoning relief as may be necessary or desirable for the development. The Land Use Commission is the determining body for this case in accordance with section 6-3-8 of the zoning ordinance. And as stated in the staff report, staff does recommend approval.
Thank you. All right, continue. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. My name is Aaron Myrold. I'm at 1916 Grant Street. For a little bit of background about myself, I went to high school in Evanston, kind of always envisioned moving back here when I was ready to settle down. In 2024, my fiance and I began looking for our first home. Buying just a flat out single family home wasn't really in the cards for us. We thought a multifamily building would work a little bit better for us to help offset some costs and also kind of give us the desired location and space to accommodate work from home careers. However, during the initial renovation, because the building was 100 years old, we were rebuilding the enclosed porch on the back, and the rear basement stairwell collapsed. In order to kind of bring it in line with the code requirements, it required changes to the original what was there. And that led us to needing to seek a major variance. At that point, it kind of put our construction on hold. It's been quite a few months, almost a year since that began, and our neighbors have very politely been waiting with the open construction in the backyard. Our original plan after purchasing the building was basically we found out that the existing enclosed porch was not salvageable. It was pulling away from the building, and so we kind of at that time decided to try rebuilding it as is or as was, and began demo. And that was how we're planning to maintain the grandfathered status of the 2-flat, was just building it exactly as it existed. But with the collapse of the stairwell, we saw we would need to get a major variance and decided to make a few changes to our original plans. The revised plans basically involve pushing the addition back to cover both sides of where the enclosed porch was and just the exposed staircase. So to get the full width of the building, This gives us the ability to expand the kitchen to a more modern standard. This is more of like a family size eat-in kitchen. What was there before was very small, not much space. So this is a more modern standard, we feel, and it adds an extra bedroom on the west side of the building. The new plans that we have put together meet all the zoning requirements. The only relief we really need is to allow the expansion of the 2-flat inside of the R1 district. Again, you can see here our neighbor to the west has a similar addition to the rear, and it may be a little bit difficult to see, but we kind of put in the plan drawing off the rear of our building just to show roughly the size there. But the building to our west was decommissioned into a single family home. We'd like to keep the 2-flat. And unfortunately, at this point, if we can't get this major variance, we may have to deconvert it into a single-family home. But the intention is to keep it as a 2-unit and help with we'd like to have a tenant above us. But yeah, so basically it'll expand the kitchen, as you can see in the floor plans, creating kind of an open kitchen with a sunroom, and then adding an additional bedroom to the west. Then we'll be moving the staircase to the rear behind that addition and also provide a little deck space. And here you have a picture of the previous enclosed porch and stairwell, followed by our plans for the new addition. And then, yeah, we believe that the standards are met as described in our application, and again, here in the slides. But if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Let's see. We'll move on to public comment. I see one person signed up to speak. Pamela Powell Rosenbush. Yes. You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. Excuse me. My name is Pamela Powell Rosenbush, and I live at 1914 Grant Street, next to 1916 Grant Street. I have lived there for 51 years, and I am currently 83 years old. Since Aaron took ownership of the 2-flat, we have had problems. They did not post their construction permit when they started. One Sunday, one of the workers was digging up the backyard, and they're not supposed to work on Sundays. The girlfriend called the police, and they stopped. One evening, the workers were throwing out things from the second floor windows. They were metal. I don't know what they were from. I mean, what part of it. And they were throwing them out, and it was getting close to my gas meter, and I was afraid they were going to hit it. Again, a girlfriend stepped in and helped correct the situation. They never put a gate in the fence on my side to keep kids from going in the backyard where this deep pit they had dug to add the addition to. And I've worried about that the whole time, but I mentioned it to their consultant, and she said they would do it after they had completed everything. In the flyer given to me from Melissa Klotz of the development, who previously worked for the city of Evanston, she proposed all the changes on the flyer. I think you've seen this one before, to demolish the old rear one-room addition and open the stairwell. Well, they did this before they had permission to do that. It says proposed, demolish one rear, one-room addition and open stairwell. Well, they did that last year. They went and did it without permission from the city. One other contractor, Steve, has complained to me that he hasn't been paid for all of his work in the concrete. And finally, the front yard of the property is a jungle, and they will not take care of it. They will only do something in the horrible mess of the front yard when the project in the back is done or completed. Finally, the extension of the rooms on the back will cut off my sunlight in my living room. I sit on my sofa in my living room, and the back porch they want to build on the second floor will cut out my ability to sit there. I would appreciate their making smaller and not coming out and putting it in the eaves and the whatever they call it in the second floor, so that I could still get some sun in my living room. Thank you for consideration of my request.
Thank you. There's someone signed up to speak, Mark Wayenmuller. Is that person here? Okay. All right, that's everybody I have signed up to speak. There's nobody online, right?
If anyone online would like to speak for this case, you can unmute.
Okay. In that case, we're done with public comment. Questions from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Mangum.
I guess this is a question for city staff. So is it true that this was done a year ago, or?
I will have to go back and look at it exactly if it was a year ago or not, but it's been a complicated permit process, from what the applicant has said. So it has been some time, yes.
So considering the request in front of us right now, I want to just clarify that the only reason they're looking for this relief is because this is a two-family unit that is currently in a R1 zoning district, and they are grandfathered in because it was built before that zoning area got put in, correct?
That's correct, yep. Otherwise, they meet all other bulk and development standards.
Right. And as a two-family unit, and if this was zoned as an R3, as that would be appropriate for them, what they're trying to do is completely compliant with all regulations for an R3.
That's correct. Yes. Yes.
And similarly, if this was a single-family home in an R1, the expansion they're trying to do would be completely compliant within that scenario too.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Johnson.
Sorry, but just to be crystal clear, Mr. Bebo, if an owner deconverted this building into a single family home and put this addition on, they wouldn't be here.
That's correct. The only reason that they're here, is because
it's too
they want to expand. Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
At some point with the future code, we would love to get away from having to do this to you guys. But yes.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Does the applicant have anything further to say?
Good evening, Commissioners. Melissa Klotz. Just to respond to some of the concerns that were brought up by the neighbor, I did go around the neighborhood and speak to a number of neighbors, including Pamela, and we had some email correspondence back and forth. The contractor issues, I don't know, again, that was over a year ago, and that is specific to those contractors. We would hope and work with the contractors to make sure they do follow all proper rules and regulations in the future, especially including not working on Sundays, not throwing things out windows. As for the construction site, when I did go around the neighborhood, the construction fence around the site was not up to my standards, as well as the neighbors' standards. So I made that a priority with the owners. They immediately got out there and put up a much better construction fence, and they also installed shoring along their fence, their permanent fence that's on the side yard, to make sure that it wasn't washing out under it to where the neighbors' dogs might be able to dig under it. We wanted to make sure that was not a concern. And lastly, nothing was done without a permit. A permit has been obtained at the property. That was the original permit, and then the basement stairwell fell apart. So that's when everything went on hold. So there was construction done roughly a year ago, and it has been on hold since then. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is this project being self-GC'd, or is there a licensed general contractor that's going to oversee this?
There is a licensed general contractor.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners? Okay, in that case, we will close the record and move into commissioner deliberations. What do you all think? Commissioner Johnson?
I'm fine with it. They meet all the other aspects of our zoning ordinance. It's the setbacks, the bulk of the building, the height, everything. The only thing that's triggering this is that it's two-family, and it's been two-family for over 100 years. So I don't have any problem with their small addition.
I'm also in support. I think that the proposed renovations and additions are certainly, in the addition of a bedroom in each of the units is a reasonable thing to do. So we're looking at really a two-unit building that's suitable for families, which is one of the things that as a community we've been supportive of for a long time. So I'm no issues with this project.
Same.
Okay. In that case, can I have, I don't think we need to add any more conditions other than the standard one in the packet. So I will move through the standards. For major variations. Major variations may be authorized by the Land Use Commission upon making written findings that the proposed variation satisfies the following standards. Number one, the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. The standard is met as the exact same construction has happened next door, and we're recognizing that this is a special case of them being grandfathered in to a non-compliant situation. Number two, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. They meet all applicable rules and regulations. Were this grandfathering situation not there? Number three, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. This standard is met as it is a peculiar situation for their property, and they were grandfathered in prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance. Number four, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. This standard is met as it doesn't make rational sense that they should suffer under this current situation. Number five, the variation is a big one. The variation is not based on exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property. I'm just going to pause there. As we've seen, that's not the case. The standard is met. Number six, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. This standard is met as we saw the applicant did not create the condition. Number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the Land Use Commission issues its decision or recommendation to the City Council regarding said variation. This standard is met as the proposed construction is completely within their right based on what would have been normal regulations. With that, can I have a motion for approval?
Sure. With respect to the major variation request for 1916 Grant Street, 26 ZMJV-0045, I recommend that the city or the Land Use Commission approve this requested variation.
With the one condition listed in the...
With one condition listed in the staff recommendation.
Yep.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Can we have a vote?
Commissioner Harris-Free?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Limbaugh?
Yes.
Commissioner Mabadi?
Yes.
Commissioner Mangum?
Yes.
And Chair Puctel?
Yes, that is 6-0. That request is approved. Thank you very much, and you can follow up with staff for next steps. Okay, the final item of new business on the agenda tonight is the family necessity variation and major variation at 2737 Highland Avenue. Mr. Bebo, can you please read that into the record?
All right. I'm going to butcher the name, so I apologize. Bears Humayadan, applicant, requests a family necessity variation from zoning ordinance section 6-4-6-3, table 4-A12, that lists driveways as a permitted accessory building, structure, or use in the front, side, and rear yards. The applicant requests that the driveway not be considered permanent parking. Simultaneously, the applicant requests a major variation from zoning ordinance section 6-4-6-3B, table 4-A19, that states in a residential district, open off-street parking is required to be within 30 feet of the rear lot line or an alley. The applicant also seeks a major variation from zoning ordinance section 6-8-2-12, which prohibits on-site parking from crossing a front lot line when open access to an alley is present. The applicant requests an open off-street parking space located in a front yard more than 30 feet from the rear lot line or an alley to be allowed. The property is located in an R1 single-family residential district. The applicant may seek and the Land Use Commission may approve or recommend additional zoning relief or approvals as may be necessary or desirable for the development. In this case, the Land Use Commission is the determining body for the case in accordance with section 6-3-8 of the zoning ordinance. And then stated in the staff report, staff is not supportive of either request.
Thank you. Can the applicant now come on up and tell us about your request?
Good evening. My name is Katerina Carrick, and I'm the attorney for the applicant. Applicant request is twofold. First, the applicant is requesting a family necessity variance, as mentioned by Jeremiah, based on zoning ordinance section 6-4-6-3B that lists the driveway as a permitted accessory building slash structure for use in the front yard. And then alternatively, we are also seeking a major variation for the proposed driveway and curb cut to cross the front yard when alley access is available. The property owner is Lale Hurmedan. She is the mother of the applicant. The husband of the property owner, Mr. Ali Hurmedan, is here. He is wheelchair bound. And we have reduced the scope of the request from the last time we were before the commission, which we will discuss shortly. We have talked to the neighbors and obtained letters of support from based on the revised proposal. We believe that the family necessity variance is appropriate because it's intended to allow the city to authorize temporary parking for an individual protected under the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as the Fair Housing Act. It is a reasonable accommodation under the city ordinance as well as under state and federal law. If the family necessity variance is granted, the front driveway or parking pad would be for this family only. So that's something, frankly, we were not aware was a possibility to apply for the last time we were here. But with this reduced scope of the request, I absolutely think it's appropriate. So it is for the family only, so that if you approve the family necessity variance, the driveway would have to be removed before they sell the property. And all of the original conditions would have to be restored. So that is part of the proposal that's very different from the request we made when we were here last time. Again, the family necessity variance is absolutely appropriate, and I'm glad the city has that avenue available. However, if you find that the family necessity variance is not applicable to this situation or appropriate, based on our discussion with staff, we are requesting a major variation. And I won't repeat, there's two of them, and Jeremiah mentioned, I won't go over the sections, but you have them before you here. And essentially, the code prohibits a driveway crossing the front line, lot line of when alley access is available like it is here. This is just a summary of our request. And again, you see here the property where it's located. And we'll get into this in a minute, but there's a really narrow section of Highland Avenue that right where this property's front line is, and we'll get to that in a second here. So why are we back here asking for this request? Simply put, the existing rear parking does not provide accessible access to the home. And you can see in this picture how the road essentially narrows. It goes from about 24 feet to 16 feet. So the street is practically as narrow as a residential driveway. Also, if you can see really far back, there's a fire hydrant there, right where the street is narrow, and the parking is available only along the opposite side of the street, further away from the home. And this is especially significant for someone who cannot simply park farther down the block and then walk to the house. There's no sidewalks on the other side of the street. The residence has rear parking. The issue is whether that parking provides safe and practical, accessible route for the home, for the occupant who lives in the home and is wheelchair dependent. Staff pointed to the existing rear parking as potential alternative. The problem is not getting a vehicle onto the property from the alley. It is getting the resident safely from the vehicle to the house. There is a 9-step grade change in the back of the home. We do have a video that we can get to later if that's of interest, showing the 9-step grade and how it's actually like a 5-foot incline to get into the house. The route from the rear parking area towards the residence involves approximately 85 feet of uphill travel and approximately 63 inches, more than 5 feet of elevation change. Addressing approximately 63 inches of elevation through an accessible ramp would require more than 100 feet of ramping together with necessary landings and turns. So when we say that a rear ramp is not a practical alternative, we're not talking about adding like a short ramp over the stairs. It would be substantial, a substantial exterior ramp system extending through the rear portion of the property. Now, this is showing you the survey, and it doesn't really do justice for how steep the elevation is in the back, the 5-foot depression in the back. Now, is it possible to add a ramp? Yes, absolutely, it's possible. But is it reasonable to expect a disabled resident to do that? No. We have an alternative that is much more suitable and reasonable. And, you know, we've thought about rainy summers, you know, icy cold winters, and a 100-foot ramp is just not going to cut it. A little bit about Ali Hermida, and if you don't remember from the last time we were here, he became wheelchair bound after the purchase of the home. So he cannot walk 60 to 90 yards. He can get up and kind of take a step or two, but he cannot move without significant help from his wheelchair or loved ones. So they are a multi-generational household, and the family kind of helps him get around. This proposal is substantially different from the original proposal. The applicant responded to the concerns from staff and the commission about the scope. The applicant proposed initially an 18-foot driveway that opens to 19 feet and then has a depressional curb that is 20 feet wide. The proposal was for as-constructed approval. However, the new proposal is reduced to a 15-foot driveway to accommodate one car, and it goes down to 10 feet and then expands to 12 feet rather than 20 feet. The new dimensions reflect an effort to keep the driveway narrow, except where additional width is actually necessary for the wheelchair maneuvering. They would reduce the hardscape by approximately 25%, which is a significant improvement. We have gone out and talked to the neighbors about the revised proposal. They all appreciated staying informed about the revised proposal, and many of them expressed frustration with how narrow the street is, as well as how fast people drive there. 4 neighbors submitted letters of support, and you can see the green pins are demonstrating which neighbors expressed support, and it's immediately 3 neighbors to the north and 1 directly south. Now, before we get into the standards for approving a family necessity variation, I will say this. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Fair Housing Act, the City of Evanston has to provide a reasonable accommodation from the zoning ordinance to individuals with disabilities. This can be done through an administrative process, formal variation application process, or as the City of Evanston has done, through a family necessity variance process. The city allows the family necessity variance to be approved either administratively or by the Land Use Commission. So that's what brings us here before you tonight. And there is a case out of the 7th District Court of Appeals from Wilmette, neighboring jurisdiction, Adadian versus Village of Wilmette, where the occupants wanted to update their home with an attached front garage and driveway. The zoning ordinance prohibited a front driveway when 50% or more of the homes on the block had front or side driveways. In this instance, they had 6 out of the 16 homes on Dadian's the homeowner's block had front or side driveways, so that they petitioned for a variance to demonstrate hardship. At the hearing, they represented that they had problems with walking. One of the owners had osteoporosis and asthma. The other one had orthopedic problems. The village trustees denied the request by a vote of 5-2. Unfortunately, what happened, they sued the village for disability discrimination under the ADA and FHA, and they prevailed, and then the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed the decision of the trial court. So the family necessity variance, I think, I wasn't the one to draft this, but it exists to support the city in avoiding these situations, like the one in Wilmette. Staff suggests that the family necessity variance provisions may not apply because of the proposed improvements being located outside of the physical structure of the home. Respectfully, we believe that the interpretation is a little too narrow. Accessibility to a residence necessarily includes the ability to safely reach the residence. A wheelchair accessible entrance provides little practical benefit if the resident cannot safely travel between the vehicle and the entrance. So the proposed driveway is not being requested as a convenience or an amenity. Its sole purpose is to provide safe and accessible connection between the vehicle and the house. With all due respect to staff, and they're great, and we worked with them, I think they're being a little too rigid in their interpretation and not seeing the forest from the trees. However, the staff has deferred the decision on whether to apply the family necessity variance to this application to the Land Use Commission, and we believe that you should approve it. And with regard to the standards, the applicant meets all of the criteria for approving the family necessity variance. No substantial adverse impact will be caused. One-car driveway is consistent with nearby properties. There's already precedent for it in the neighborhood. No reports of pedestrians being hurt as a result. The redesign minimizes the impact of to the pedestrians and the surrounding properties, and the neighbors we spoke to have been supportive. Also, it is consistent with the intent of the zoning ordinance. Staff correctly identifies the policies behind requiring alley access where it is available, limiting curb cuts, preserving landscape and trees, reducing pedestrian conflicts, and limiting unnecessary pavement in the front yards. We are not disputing those objectives at all. The question here is whether a strict application of those general policies is appropriate where the existing alley access does not provide meaningful wheelchair access to this particular residence. The applicant has attempted to reconcile those competing interests by reducing the proposal to one space. Before it was two spaces, now it's one, minimizing the hardscape by 25%, preserving the street tree, and limiting the requested relief to absolutely what is necessary for accessibility. In that respect, the request does not reject the purposes of the ordinance. It simply asks the commission to balance between the stated purpose and of the ordinance and then the broader public health, safety, welfare objectives, which are unique to the accessibility circumstance here. With regard to compatibility with the character of the neighborhood, the relevant question is not whether every property on Highland Avenue has this exact configuration. It is whether this limited improvement would materially alter the established residential character. The use remains unchanged. Only one vehicle is being accommodated, and the applicant has reduced the paved area from the earlier proposal. The surrounding area also contains other examples of street access front yard driveway conditions, demonstrating that the physical presence of a driveway is not itself inconsistent with the residential character. And I think this is undisputed. There's no, it's not for financial gain. There's no economic component to this request. The improvement does not create additional rentable space, increase density, introduce any new use. The cost of constructing and maintaining the accessible improvement is being undertaken solely to address the occupants' mobility needs. And with regard to the least criteria, that it be least deviation from the zoning ordinance, staff's principal concern is that additional work in the rear yard could potentially provide accessibility with less zoning relief. The possibility needs to be evaluated against the actual grade rather than simply the existence of rear parking. There's more than 5 feet of vertical change between the rear parking area and the relevant level of the residence. A compliant ramp addressing that change would require more than approximately 100 feet of ramping together with landscaping and directional changes. That is why the applicant does not consider the rear alternative to be a reasonable equivalent to one accessible space near the residence. Similarly, neither the street parking nor the parking across the street guarantee an accessible space when the resident needs it. And lastly, I put it in red there, but the great thing about the family necessity variance is that it's for this family only. The driveway parking space would have to be removed prior to the sale of the home. It's not a permanent spot, and it's treated as a temporary drop-off, so the family would be able to, they can't just leave a car there for an indefinite period of time. They would use it more as like a drop-off for the father, and then they would help repark the car if needed. And it's not intended to constantly house the car for long-term parking. So that's the thing that I think is really nice about this option is that it's limited to the family, and not that anybody else would want it. Slide 16. So as we went over, the alternatives have been considered and they're not adequate for wheelchair access. I will move to the second set of criteria for the major variation. This is an alternative to the family necessity variance. If you find that the family necessity variance is not appropriate, we are asking for the major variation. The same facts also support a major variation request, but we recognize that the major variation standards are a bit different and look to hardship and whether it's self-created, has adverse impact, and so we'll go over those in just a minute. So the requested variance variation will not have substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. Again, this is a single-car driveway, and it's compatible with the nearby residential properties. Similar front yard driveways exist throughout the neighborhood. We'll show you a couple in a minute. The next door, right next door, I think to the north and across the street, there's one. The revised design takes into account pedestrian safety and the visual impact, and also the neighborhood character and property values will be preserved. They will not be negatively impacted, and there's no indication, even with the existing driveway or parking pad that was constructed, that has reduced that property values in the area. There's no evidence to suggest that. These are the, you can see on the picture here, next door to the north, there's a front driveway, and then across the street, there's one as well. So there's precedent for this. Back in February 2026, about a month after we were here before the Land Use Commission, and the Commission voted down the initial proposal, the Commission approved several variations for another residential property, 2300 Marcy Avenue. So that included, amongst other things, a variance to allow a driveway that does not lead up to the garage located within 30 feet of the rear property line or alley. That case also involved a through driveway and 2 curb cuts to the street across 2 public sidewalks. This is more than what we are asking for here. The original proposal of the Hermadens, as well as the one that's revised and before you here tonight, is less intense than what was proposed for 2300 Marcy Avenue. The only difference between the 2 cases is that the original driveway in that case was not established without a permit. Here it was, and I think some commissioners really wrestled with the facts of that case and compared it to this one. Do you regulate the use or the user? How is this different? How is it the same? And I just asked the Commission, please don't be more punitive than necessary here. The Hermadens take full responsibility for what happened with the permit and the stop work order. They have learned from this experience and to take permitting into their own hands rather than rely on contractors and their representations. They have endured the costs of administrative code hearings, zoning applications, expert fees, lawyer costs, and more than a year of stress trying to get this situation resolved and rectified with the city for their dad. They are genuinely sorry for causing the problem to begin with, and it will never happen again. With regard to the particular hardship or practical difficulty, staff notes that this is a conforming lot and that the lot is comparatively large. The applicant is not claiming that the hardship arises from inadequate lot area. The hardship arises from the relationship among the existing physical conditions, the rear alley parking, more than 5 feet of grade change between the parking and the residence, the narrow street configuration, restricted curb parking, and the residents' need for wheelchair access. A large lot does eliminate that grade change. A large lot does not by itself eliminate the grade change or make the existing rear route accessible. and strict enforcement would therefore leave the property with parking in a technical sense, but without parking that provides practical, accessible connection to the residents. The hardship is not self-created. Staff raises the fact that the work on the front parking area occurred without the necessary zoning approval. We recognize that issue, and the applicant is not suggesting that construction without approval creates a right for a variation, but the commission should distinguish between the prior construction and the underlying circumstance requiring the accommodation. The applicant did not create the rear yard elevation change, the original placement of the house, and the garage, the alley configuration, the narrow roadway. Nor was the residence purchased with the current accessibility need in mind. That circumstance arose after the family acquired the home. The application should therefore be evaluated on whether those underlying conditions establish the requisite hardship, not simply on the fact that work occurred before the zoning relief was obtained. Have other alternatives been considered? The revisions are evidence of the applicant's willingness to respond to the city's concerns. The existing rear parking requires an ADA compliant ramp exceeding 100 feet, as I mentioned, multiple landings and turns due to the 9-step grade change. The ramp would be difficult to maintain and unsafe to navigate during winter conditions and possibly other seasons as well. There's no legal on-street parking available. You can see a little bit of it here. So there's no, it's not available. It's actually very limited. They have, so there's about 24 feet. It's hard to see here, but it gets reduced to 16 feet. And then where it's 16 feet, nobody's supposed to park on either side of the street. And just south of there, like past the house, there are, I believe, 3 parking spaces to the, on the eastern side, or I'm sorry, on the western side of the property. And from my understanding, those are like the only spots available that they can use. But even with that, they'd have to, he'd have to get out of the car. There's no sidewalk, cross the street. And my clients and the neighbors agree that there's a lot of fast driving going on there. As well as the fire hydrant. So that is another thing. It's right next to their home, and it makes it really challenging to establish parking there. So again, there are a few parking spaces, but not directly accessible from the residents. No sidewalk. The parking requires crossing the street. Again, no sidewalk to get to the residence. And on April 12th, the applicant's vehicle was legally parked on Highland Avenue in that location that I just mentioned, where there's like 3 parking spots available, and was struck by a vehicle, presumably driving very fast because the impact was significant. This is not a safe option for parking for the family. The requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance and Evanston's goals support accessibility, aging in place, and housing that meets the needs of residents with disabilities. The variation provides a reasonable accommodation for a resident while protecting the public health, safety, and welfare. Similar front yard driveways already exist throughout the neighborhood and have also been approved by the commission. Revised design represents the safest solution while remaining consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. Ultimately, this application concerns whether a resident who relies on a wheelchair can safely and practically access their residence. The property has parking. What it lacks is accessible parking that provides a reasonably direct connection to the residents. The applicant evaluated the rear yard access, street parking, and parking across the street, and ultimately reduce the proposal to a single parking space in an effort to minimize the requested relief. The proposal does not increase density, change the residential use of the property, or create commercial use or alter the neighborhood character. It is site-specific and accessibility accommodation intended to allow a resident to continue living safely in the family home. For those reasons, we respectfully request that the commission find that the applicable standards of the family necessity variance or the major variation have been satisfied. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
We do have a video. It's very brief, like a minute or so. If you would like, we can present it showing the backyard condition, if that would be helpful.
Or my husband at all. He never uses this side of the house. Therefore, we always use the front yard or whatever is there as an entrance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move to public comment, I want to just get clarity on something. You mentioned that there's currently a request for a family necessity variation, but if it doesn't get approved, you're also seeking a major variation. I don't quite understand the nature of this. Actually, Jeremiah, would you mind explaining this?
I think we've frankly been struggling with it a little bit. It was a little confusing to us why we didn't just get a family necessity variation for the whole thing, because reading between the lines, it's essentially for the same thing. And feel free to jump in too if I'm misrepresenting that. There's some discussion about getting into the technicalities about like whether or not the family necessity variations establish an allowance for temporary parking, but that's really not the case. A family necessity variation is just another type of variation that runs with the land in perpetuity. Now, I suppose it's, I mean, even if it, like, for example, like if someone was requesting a family necessity variation for an addition to the house, like the addition to the house isn't going to go away just because the family moves out. I mean, it's a variation that stays with the land. I suppose a condition could be added that gets to that. From a theory standpoint, that again is a little bit weird for a variation, but it's something that could be explored to whereby if they sold the property, they were required to remove it. But there's nothing in the code that states that it's not going to go.
I'm just trying to understand what we're dealing with. Are there two requests?
There are two requests. Yes. Yes. One request as a family necessity variation, and then the other as major variations.
So the reason why if I may, the reason why we applied for both was initially we were going to apply just for the family necessity variance, but then after speaking with staff and understanding their somewhat rigid interpretation of, well, is this for a residence? If it's not, then their opinion was that you can't apply for you can't get a family necessity variance unless it's specific to the residence, the building itself. And once we got into like the technicalities of the request, we determined with staff that it was appropriate to add the major variation as part of this request as an alternative. If, let's say, the Land Use Commission decides, well, we don't want to grant the family necessity variance, we agree with staff, it's only for the residents. In that case, we are asking for the major. So the second one is conditioned on the first one not being approved.
Okay.
That was my understanding as well. That was my understanding as well, that that staff had basically said that the family variation isn't quite applicable here. And so alternatively, that's why they're applying for the major variation.
Okay, but we're, yeah, this is just a little unusual, because we're dealing with two applications, potentially.
Right. And kind of for essentially the same thing. And I will say too, in my research, I haven't been able to find another application that we processed for a family necessity variation either. So this potentially is the first one.
Okay. All right. Well, let's try it.
And I think, just if I may, like that is the fact that there hasn't been a family necessity variance, at least, I don't know for how many years, the people are not relying on that. And I think it would be a good thing for staff to make it more of it, the public know that it's out there and that the city does have this wonderful option to go through if they do have mobility issues or other disabilities that require accommodation.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson, do you have just a scoping question?
Are we doing questions for the applicant?
Well,
Not yet.
if it's about the details of the request, let's hold until after public comment. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I see two people signed up to speak from the public, Elizabeth Burrell and Esther Kaplan. Great. You'll each have 3 minutes. You can go in whichever order you like.
My name is Elizabeth Burrell. I live at 3202 Otto Lane. I was not asked anything by anybody with respect to anything going on this property. I actually do not support granting the variance regardless of who's going to be parking there. They put in a slab that actually accommodates up to 4 cars. It means that this was put in a neighborhood with graceful family homes, and some do have garages and driveways of a single lane in front, and others have access from the alley. I'm having the property in which these drivers just simply drive over the curb, over the parkway, across the sidewalk, leaving a ton of mud on the sidewalk, and onto their giant parking pad that dominates the whole frontscape of their property, is not at all consistent with anything in the neighborhood. And I think that it also violates the clear, dictates of the zoning code. I think it debases the neighborhood. People look at that and like, what? It looks like a commercial property someplace rather than a residential one. Some of the things that I heard here, I don't know where the attorney got her sources. There is legal parking on the other side of the paved part of the street. It's an unpaved grant from a property owner who has an undeveloped property and is bounded by a fence to the extreme west side. It was a terrible idea by the city to put this in there and make that street one way, because it means that people who park there have a very difficult maneuver getting out of their car, getting past the fence, and crossing over. It could be resolved by making Highland on that block a southbound traffic lane rather than a north one. There is not that much fast traffic that goes up. Periodically there are more traffic things than not. But I also think that the request for the family necessity variation should not be considered. Nobody's asked whether there's a wheelchair ramp getting into the front door. As of yesterday, there was not. And the other question to ask is how many family members have cars attached to that residence? There are a lot of cars that they drive, and they park up on the gravel area and back on the paved area in front of Uster's house. They park at the street. Some of them park 3 feet from the curb, further restricting the width of the street. They really are not at all considerate of the parking norms or their neighbors. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Yes, please.
My name is Esther Kaplan. I live at 3205 Otto Lane. I am the house on the intersection of Otto and Highland. The length of the house faces Highland, and I am right across the street from the property in question. The driveway that has been established, it's a driveway. It replaced a normal 3-foot, walkway to the front of the house. Got established when the current family moved in. Highland is a very narrow street. It's barely 3 cars, and that's why they have only parking on one side of Highland. The property, the driveway that they have, there are vans and SUVs that park there and stay a while. At least half a dozen to a dozen times I've witnessed that. And their getting in and getting out is always something I am concerned about, because my car is parked right across from that driveway, and there isn't enough room for it to be safe, especially in conditions when we have ice or snow, for someone to come into that driveway when there's a car that's parked on the west side of Highland. There are 4 houses that have driveways through the front lawn. In all of these 4 instances, including mine, in all of these 4 instances, the driveways lead into a garage. And entrance or exit from the garage would be impossible if the driveway weren't there. So it was part of the original built of the house. My house has been there since 1950 or 60. So it's been there a while, and I've lived in this house about 38 years. The gentleman in the wheelchair, I'm very sorry for his disability, but I never saw anybody enter that house or leave that house in a wheelchair. My large front window in my living room faces their house, and I see people coming and going, parking in front of my house all the time, but I've never seen anybody in a wheelchair. So I guess that's pretty much, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody online?
Looks like we still have one person online. If you're online and would like to speak on this application, please unmute yourself now.
Okay. That will conclude public comment. And now we'll start with questions from commissioners. I'd like to just to start by asking a question of city staff. One of the standards that needs to be met, and what has been discussed so far in the presentation, is whether or not alternatives for access in the rear yard have been explored. And the applicant has commented on that. But I want to ask Mr. Bebo, like, in your experience, what are other solutions that people have done in this situation?
I can't frankly say that I've been involved in many similar situations like this where they've been requesting it specifically for parking. I have where they've needed like a ramp out of the house or some type of addition built. But it's been discussed not only with zoning staff, but with other departments too, that the amount of land that they have in the rear yard should be sufficient enough to come up with another solution, whether it's a ramp or extending the parking in the rear so that they have surface parking that gets them closer to the house. I do understand that there's significant improvements to the backyard with decks and patios and things like that they want to keep, and I can completely understand why, but we just didn't feel that that standard had still been met. The solution of having a parking space in the front yard is of our opinion that it's really the most impactful of any solution or choice that could have been done.
Okay, thank you. Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Johnson.
Can we put the plat of survey up on the screen? Because this lot is 50 by 218. Let's say 217 and a half. Okay. And it's 50 feet wide. Maybe the applicant. Do you know?
Yeah.
You mentioned it earlier in your talk, but I just wanted to make sure I heard it correctly.
Let me just confirm, but I think that's right. Yep.
Was it 50 or 60?
55.
55, okay. And question for the applicant here. What's the distance? Sorry, let me back up. You said that in order to provide a ramp with the grade difference, the ramp would need to be about 100 feet?
Correct.
Okay. What's the distance between the back edge of the garage and the back edge of the house?
I think it's about 85 feet. I don't have the exact dimension marked here, but that's my approximation of it.
Okay, about 85 feet. Okay, thanks.
Commissioner, Mabadi.
So I have some familiarity with this property because it was recently acquired, and I have some data. The backyard is pretty level. It's the elevation between the 5-foot rise is attributed to not to the lot itself, but to how the house sits on the lot. The house is raised several feet to accommodate for its foundational basement structure, I suppose. But you have decking in the back that is the hurdle to overcome. And I think that, I mean, as I'm sitting listening to you, I'm looking and I'm seeing there are outdoor wheelchair lift solutions that could be incorporated into a deck that I think would actually be an enhancement to the property versus what you're proposing. And I guess where I'm confused about is maybe I misread it, but isn't there an issue regarding the proximity of this front-loaded parking to and the driveway to the fire hydrant? Is that an issue that we have to have 15 feet and we're at 5?
That's correct.
Okay, is that an overcomable issue, or is that like a hard stop?
I don't know. As of right now, their opinion on it is that it still doesn't meet code. They're not supportive of it. However, if the Land Use Commission approves the variation, the director is willing to grant it, essentially. But it remains a problem.
And again, I know that staff doesn't agree that this has to be for the family only, but I think the intent of the code for the family necessity variance is to accommodate the person living there, so it's a little bit different, and this would not be something that runs with the land.
I have some struggles with the presentation itself because, and I am very sympathetic to the candidate's concern, but when it's presented that this will just be simply removed, this is a fixture. Once it's put in the ground, it's installed. it's very difficult to tell someone to take it out of the ground to make it sellable. I think you run into, I think that's going to be a very difficult thing for the city to require somebody to remove something in order for it to be able to clear the hurdle of a sale when they want to sell the property. So our view, I think, or my view, I should speak only for myself, my view is that once it goes in, it's in. So it's not coming out unless the next buyer chooses to remove it, because they are buying the asset as they see it. The prima facie is what you see is what you get. So I don't think you're going to be able to, I don't know how you would do that. I guess you'd put it'd be an easement of some sorts. It'd be I've never heard of that. Is that a thing that we do?
The thing that comes to mind right now is like having some sort of written agreement or maybe covenant that you record on title, and that alerts the title company and potential lender if they're using a lender. But it's messy, it's hard to enforce, and it's not preferable.
Right.
I think Jeremiah just answered a portion of that. But yeah, to clarify, there have been driveway approvals in the past in Evanston, and they typically included a condition that the ordinance be recorded with the property, so that then when the property is sold, when a title search is done, they can see in that ordinance that there's a condition that the driveway must come out.
Can we point to that? Can we give is there an example, a specific example of that you know of? I mean, that's just
I can't think offhand, but there's at least 10 of them out there. I mean, there's one on Ridge. I couldn't tell you the address offhand.
Okay.
Other questioners?
Yes, I have
Commissioner
several.
Linwall.
Again, I also was wondering, why or if a lift in the rear had been considered rather than a ramp or a partial ramp. I mean, I know that when the YMCA was doing their renovation, kind of a lift to the basement is part of their plan. So I know that there are ones that apparently work in this climate, even with snow and ice. So it seems, so that's one question. And then I guess the other question is the proposal, if we were to approve the family necessity variation, that the applicant would remove the portion of the driveway?
Yes, that is the proposal. Sorry, and I should answer the first one first. So, yes, so even if they did a lift, they would still need significant ramping in order to get like that 85-foot coverage and then put in a ramp or put in a lift. And they would still need to make alterations to the deck because they'd have to figure, as you could see in the video, it's not just like a typical deck. There's a lot of staircases, about 9 steps in total to get over. So that would still require a lot of work to the deck and the rear area. And I still think 85 feet of ramp at least with some maneuverability to get him up there.
But the point is, I mean, that is, and the question is really, is that a feasible solution that has been explored?
Yes, exactly. It's been explored. We just don't think it's a feasible solution for them.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, Commissioner Harris-Free.
Has there been a design that moves the parking pad away from the fire hydrant to the other side of the yard, that we get within we're closer to the 15 feet away?
Yeah, so that is a great question. So on one side there is a tree, and on the other side there is the fire hydrant, and we did our best to reduce the scope, to reduce the impact on both. So exactly like towards that residence, there's an expansion to allow for them to exit the vehicle and get into the house, but it narrows in to be mindful of the tree and the fire hydrant. And if we moved it one way, we'd have to get rid of the tree, and they don't want to do that. And the tree is in a healthy condition. We had an arborist inspect it.
I'm going to have another question in 1 second.
Commissioner Linwall.
I guess this is a question, typically when you have the family, and it's probably for staff, but you can answer too. And typically with a family necessity variation for, say, a ramp, a handicapped, isn't that typically part of the application? And why was the ramp for your front step not included in your application?
Yeah, they didn't apply, they didn't ask for that. I don't think they need it. He's able to get into the house over one step, and usually there is a person accompanying him at this point. At some point when he's driving on his own, that probably will be forthcoming, a request for that.
And would that be a separate, how would that get handled, or is that required?
I guess it just kind of depends on how much it's going to stick out. I would hope that a variation's not required for it. But it could potentially be another family necessity variation.
But that could be handled by staff at the staff level, or would it come back to us? I mean,
we potentially could handle it under a minor variation.
I agree with that. And to just, based on what Melissa said, so we have not had I have not dealt with a covenant restriction in Evanston, but in other municipalities, we have had similar situations where conditions similar to this, where something was specific to the occupant, was recorded against title to notify prospective buyers, and it doesn't have to be an extensive agreement. It's just a basic recording of the ordinance to explain what was approved and for whom, and what that upon this occupant's sale of the property, the conditions have to be restored.
Other questions from?
Please, let's elaborate a little bit on this tree situation, because yeah, I'm looking at photographs of the property as I'm talking to you, and I'm looking at a straight-on photograph, and the entire front of the house, there's a couple small trees, but oh, here we go. Thank you. Okay, so there's probably, well, see, that's the problem. You move that, if you move that driveway over, you're going to hit the primary roots right here. That's going to kill that tree. So what you're saying is the only way to move this over would be to kill the tree.
Correct.
Okay. Would you kill the tree?
Our goal was not to. Our goal was to
Sure.
keep the tree.
But I mean, the thing about it, it's tree, to me, it's tree versus fire hydrant. And I think fire hydrant wins, because the fire hydrant's there not to protect the tree, but to protect everyone around it. So, like, it's a question, like, if that's something that should be explored or not.
If I could clarify about the fire hydrant. So my understanding from discussion with Public Works is that there is no regulation or requirement for a distance for a driveway to be from a fire hydrant. There is a requirement in the city code that you cannot park within 15 feet of a fire hydrant. We are not requesting to park within 15 feet. We would be on the apron and covering the public sidewalk if we did that. So we will not be breaking a city regulation. We will not be within 15 feet of it.
That's correct and a fair statement. Although, one can infer that at some point a car could potentially be parked there, but again, that's just situational.
So egress does not play a role in that measurement then? How can that be?
Correct. That's my understanding. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Mangum.
Based on the plat of survey, it seems like the owners have enough space in the rear yard to build a ramp or some sort of lift that's covered to eliminate this issue.
So I looked at the rear pictures. There's 3 steps going in from the patio to get into the house. It's 3 steps, whereas it's 1 step in the front. So these are the balancing features that if they could build, maybe you could slightly adjust, put a bigger footprint, base footprint on the door, and put a lift that takes you right up there. Was once that is a solvable problem, but it's a more challenging process. The other thing is you could pull the drive. You could have a side drive. You could pull the side drive up so that the distance between the gentleman getting out of the vehicle and getting to that ramp or whatever, you have a lot of land back there that you could do something to the if I'm looking at the garage from the house to the left of the garage, you have a right justified garage with the sidewalk. So if you went on the other side of it, which is wide open, you could build something there in the way of a pull-up parking pad with a shorter ramp. I mean, there's things that could be, you have land there to do stuff. That's the thing.
So, thank you. With respect to that, so is it possible to add change move the parking pad, or add 85 feet of ramp, and there's nine steps, so 3 steps to the house, but 9 steps total from ground level, and 5 feet in total to get him all the way up. Is that a reasonable?
But I can tell you, you could do a driveway in the back. It'll come up to say 25 feet from the back, and then you have a little 25-foot ramp with a lift, with an actual mechanical lift that takes you up to the deck, and you're there.
In part, that would require removal of the deck. The steps are at 3 different locations, but more importantly, that would trigger a major variation for the location of that driveway and parking pad.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I never got a chance to address the public comments. May I do that now? Just briefly.
Yes, you may.
Just wanted to mention that the family is a multi-generational family. There are 4 adults and a minor living at the premises. They have a big family, big Turkish family, and so I think that is why the neighbors may see a lot of cars coming, people stopping by. But I think this, if you approve the request, it will create a space and designation who it's for, and eliminate the need for them to park on the street as often as they do, which would alleviate some of the concerns we heard. And also, the driveway that exists there now is, it's pretty large, it's sizable, so this would reduce it by 25% and really kind of limit the impact on the curb cut and the middle section at the property line. So I think what we're trying to do is actually going to benefit the neighbors there.
Thank you. Okay, seeing as there's no more questions.
Just have one for staff, but I can do that later.
Sure. But as of now, I'm going to close the record. Yeah, commissioner deliberations or questions for staff?
Yeah. Is there, we have the driveway that's sitting there now. Is there any, does that get to stay regardless, or does it not? What's the status?
No, my understanding is that it has been essentially being continued through the adjudication. It's kind of they just keep continue it until we deal with this at Land Use Commission. But if the Land Use Commission denies it, it will need to be removed.
Okay, so that's not a permitted front yard?
Correct.
Because it's a driveway?
Correct.
Not just a...
Well, both. Is it
an
more,
extra wide sidewalk?
No, more so. It's not allowed because it's a open parking pad in a front yard.
Okay.
Driveways are allowed. This gets into the technicalities of it, but driveways are allowed in a front yard, but they have to lead to a compliant parking pad
But we
or
don't
garage.
have a driveway because we don't have a curb cut.
Right,
Do we?
right.
Or a garage.
So I'd like to just make some statements. Evanston is unique in from other surrounding areas because our zoning code supports a general policy of how we want residences to look and operate and feel, and that is promoting car access to alleys. And the reason that is there is because the code is supporting an idea that by keeping car access to the alleys and generally not having curb cuts in the front, we are creating a better public benefit for residential areas. It's by minimizing curb cuts, by promoting trees in public parkways, by reducing pedestrian and vehicular conflicts in the front, and by reducing the amount of impervious concrete and other surfaces in vehicles from the public view. Right. This is and not every city's like this, right? If you go to other suburbs, the policies are different, but that's the policy here. I view these variance requests as like a fundamental challenge to that policy here. The applicant originally applied for the solution that they have right now, and it was denied. It was denied without even coming to a commission. It was denied based on staff review. They did it anyway, and they didn't improve the curb cut, and they've been driving over a curb cut for at least almost 2 years. Then they were fined. They were cited. Legal action was pending. And then they've been staying the legal action by continuing to by submitting for more variance requests. Then we had this conversation last year. We looked at all the details, and we said no again. So it was like 2 formal no's from this commission saying, like, I'm sorry, we looked at this, but no. And now it's I don't even know what to say not with this new request. I find it to be like a brazen disregard of a repeated message back to them saying, no, I'm sorry, it's like we're not going to budge. I think there's many reasons why we should deny this, and the most obvious one is that there are other alternatives that feasibly could work, and when I say feasibly, I don't mean just that they're not inconvenient. I'm like, sure, it's inconvenient. Of course, it's inconvenient to like modify your porch in the background and come up with a thing, but that's the reality. And and if we approve this tonight, we're essentially saying that we're not upholding this policy in Evanston anymore, and despite our sympathies with people aging in place, that everybody should be able to put a driveway in their front yard for their convenience. That's how I see this. So I'm very much against this request, and that's my opinion. Other thoughts?
Turn on my microphone. Well said, Max. Brazen. That's not the adjective I was thinking of, but that's accurately describes this. I mean, I was out. I happened to be in the neighborhood just recently, and I went past the house. I said, that's the house that was told no many times by the city, by us, by the building department. And I actually had it in my mind to bring it up and ask city staff, like, hey, whatever happened with it? I saw the driveway still there. And then I saw it on our packet. I just want to like reiterate one more point, because they're getting at the question of the family situation and what's the least deviation of the zoning code to accommodate a person who wishes to have this access to the house. And they have plenty of room, plenty of space in the backyard to put in a handicap ramp. And that's why I just wanted to make sure I had my numbers right. I'd calculated that they have 81 feet from the back of the garage to the back of the house. They have 92 feet from the parking pad to the back of the house. And if the idea is to park on the parking pad because it's easier to open the doors when getting an elderly person in and out of the car, you have even more feet. You need a 100-foot ramp. You could go 80 feet, turn 90 degrees, put a landing, bam, right into the house. It's done all the time. Yes, it's done in places where there's snow. I mean, we have snow all over the country. We have elderly people all over the country. There's plenty of space, there's plenty of room to do this in the backyard. And that would be a much less intense deviation from what our rules say. So I support none of this.
Other commissioners?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's not been willingness to think around other solutions here other than allow us to use this parking pad we constructed without approval, and the front with the tree and the fire hydrant, it just doesn't leave many options, and that's just an unfortunate reality, but there are other possibilities to them that is not this.
And I'd go further to say this, that if you did come back here with a proposal that was asking if it required a major variance for doing it in the back, this commissioner wouldn't be punitive in my thinking because of what's transpired in the last 2 years. I think the way you guys handled it coming in this multiple times it's unhelpful. It's not this is not the way things work. It's not it's not allowed. And I think Max articulated it, Commissioner articulated it clearly. But if you do come back with a major request, that would be an interesting thing to see, because you do have a lot of real estate back there to work with.
Commissioner Limwell?
I also am opposed to granting either of these requests. I think that with respect to the family necessity variation, while it was not one of the conditions suggested by staff, I think that having a recommendation that we require the ramp to be, the driveway to be removed would be appropriate. But, the question becomes on a family necessity variation is, it was particularly with a multi-generational family. Is this going to go on for 20 years or 30 years or, and staff changes? Is it really going to be, taken out? And I think that the concerns that I had, originally with the driveway or the curb cut and the driveway crossing the sidewalk remain, in terms of pedestrian safety, while the fire department or Public Works may be willing to grant an application should the commission approve this project. I mean, I think that it's clear that the recommendation is that this is a bad idea for this street, and I don't want to, I don't really want to second guess professional staff, city staff on this, who are much more familiar with the safety implications and the other concerns. So I don't believe that the standards for approval are met for either request, either the family necessity variation or the major variation. I also would be, supportive of a solution that takes advantage of the backyard and the garage and access into the site. So I think that I'm sorry that was not something that the applicant has chosen to really explore and come up with a design to do that yet. But I hope you will come back and do that.
Okay, seeing no more deliberations, I'm going to go through the standards. Family necessity variations may be authorized by the Land Use Commission upon making written findings that the proposed variation satisfies the following standards. Number one, the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of the adjoining properties. I mean, I would actually say that this is met because there are, pre-existing situations in other areas, and I don't think property values will necessarily be reduced. Number two, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. This standard is not met as articulated before about why the zoning ordinance encourages vehicular access from the back in the alley. Number three, the character of the residence for which the variation is requested will, as a result, be as or more consistent with the character of the residences and the surrounding neighborhood. As a matter of policy, this is not the character that the zoning ordinance is going for, so this is not met. Number four, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property. This standard is met, as that is not the purpose. Number five, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the relevant regulation among the feasible options identified before the zoning administrator issues his or her recommendation to the Land Use Commission regarding said variation. This standard is not met as we've discussed that there are feasible options that could have been explored. I think I'm just going to go on and read the standards for major variation as well. And I'm getting the feeling that we'll be able to vote.
Do we need to take two votes?
Yeah, do take.
Then why don't we?
Okay, in that case, we'll stop. And I'd like to entertain a motion right now in the positive to grant the family necessity variation.
I move that the Land Use Commission approve the family necessity variation request for 2737 Highland Avenue, 26 ZM JV-0042. And was there a condition to this one or no?
There were
three.
At the top of page 386.
386.
Yep.
Okay, with the three conditions
Yeah,
listed.
just include them. Yep.
Right, is there a second?
Moved. Seconded. Can we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Harris-Free?
No.
Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Vice Chair Linbaugh?
No.
Commissioner Mabadi?
No.
Commissioner Mangum?
No.
Chair Puctel?
No, and so that's 0-6. That request fails. I'll now continue on for the standards for major variations, as that is the alternate request now. Major variations may be authorized by the Land Use Commission upon making written findings that the proposed variation satisfies the following standards. Number one, the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. I'll say that standard is met, as we haven't seen strong evidence showing that property values would decline. Number two, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. That standard is not met, as articulated earlier about why the zoning code encourages vehicular access to the rear. Number three, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. That standard is not met, as we do not believe that there is necessarily a particular hardship or difficulty with their property. Number four, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. This standard is not met because although it's acknowledged that there is a hardship, it's not peculiar to any other instance of a family living in Evanston with a similar property. And that is, Number 5, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property. This standard is met, as they're not trying to extract additional income. Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. This standard is not met. They didn't create a particular difficulty or hardship with the geometry of their property, but they have created the difficulty of the situation by not complying with the original denial of the requests. Number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the Land Use Commission issues its decision or recommendation to City Council regarding said variation. We've noted before that this is certainly not the least deviation from applicable from feasible options. So that is not met. With that, can I have a motion for, in the positive, to approve
I will go
the
for
major
it.
variation?
I move approval of the major variation application for 2737 Highland Avenue, 26ZMJV-0042, with the 3 conditions that have been recommended by staff, as noted on page 386 of our packet.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Can we have a vote?
Commissioner Harris-Free?
No.
Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Vice Chair Lindwall?
No.
Commissioner Mabadi?
No.
Commissioner Mangum?
No.
Chair Pucktell?
No. So with the vote of 0 to 6, that request fails as well. Thank you for your time. You can follow up with city staff for next steps, and good luck. Next on the agenda is general public comment, and I don't believe there's anybody here left for that, so I'm going to move on from that. Are there any updates from staff?
Nope, just letting you know, we will have a hearing on August 26th. However, there's no development cases that night. We'll just have 2 zoning text amendments that were sent to staff from the referrals committee of City Council. And we will have a public hearing on September 9th as well. We have 2 development applications on there and potentially 1 discussion item.
Okay, great. Looking forward to those agendas. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn for the evening.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? We stand adjourned. Thank you.